Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live on the Alternate Current Radio Network and also at 21stCenturyWire.com. We're also streaming out live on X, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and hopefully BitChute as well. Some of the live streams that we're going on right now as we speak. This is episode 530 of this weekly Omnibus News and Analysis radio program brought to you here on ACR. Got a couple of guests going to join us from the ACR team. We're going to be joined momentarily by our very good friend of the show, also co-host Bryan McClain, a.k.a. Hesher. You know him as host of The Boiler Room, also former TNT radio host at State of the Nation. He's going to be joining us, as well as Adam Ruckus Clark, also from ACR and also formerly of TNT Radio as well. We're going to be covering the big news this week, the New Orleans terrorist attack. I'm putting up the air quotes. We'll get to that later. And also the Las Vegas, the bizarre, I don't know what to call it. Let's call it a snafu. Las Vegas Tesla car bomb that wasn't a car bomb, that turned out to be a very strange event. Doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of static and noise going up in the information sphere, especially on YouTube and X. We're going to unpack some of that with Hesher, also with Ruckus as well. And also the kind of strange saga. I don't know what to call it, but Elon Musk is going crazy. He's kind of having a meltdown at the moment. Is calling for the dissolution of British Parliament. And now he's called for Nigel Farage to step down as leader of the Reform Party in the UK. So who knows what he's up to. And also he's calling to free Tommy Robinson from jail. So Elon Musk, strange. He's doubling down on pretty much everything that he's putting out. Who knows? Is anybody advising him? Does any of this make sense? Who knows? We'll unpack what Elon's up to there. Very strange indeed. But hopefully we'll make some sense of it for you and our audience. Hello to everybody in the 21st Century Wire chat room. Also, we're going live out on YouTube. Normally we put an audio stream from Spreaker, who was our audio carrier before, but they're discontinuing the live stream. So the infinite wisdom of Spreaker's board, they decided to get rid of live streaming on audio. So genius move. A lot of people are fleeing Spreaker as a result. So congratulations, Spreaker, for a great technical move there. So we'll put the live YouTube stream up on our show page at 21stCenturyWire.com. And I want to also direct people to our account on X. And last night we did a space on X. It was very well attended. Kind of ran late, revealed New Orleans Tesla Psyop. We had Hesher on there. We had a number of great guests coming in. Ryan Dawson also joined us on that live stream. Benjamin Rubenstein is a producer for Kim Iverson as well. So some great people we had up on the panel, as well as Bryan McClain, a.k.a. Hesher, who I'm going to bring on stage right now, and Adam Ruckus Clark, who we're also going to bring up on stage just briefly. Hesher, thanks for joining us for this live edition of the Sunday Wire. Great to have you.
Yeah, great to be here. It was disappointing to log in and hit that Spreaker link and see that indeed they were not streaming today. So big apologies to all of our people that have been listening to us on Spreaker for years. We're working in the background to try to find a replacement for that and get that up as soon as we absolutely can. But yeah, it's great to be here with you. That was a really interesting discussion last night on X, in the X space there, with you and the team. There it is on the screen there. If you want to go check it out, you can find it at 21wire over there on X. It was a long show, but we had a lot to cover. And in the second half of it, it kind of veered into, some wider topics. Ryan Dawson was talking about Jeffrey Epstein and, everything. We had a long discussion about Tommy Robinson and all that. So it was a really informative evening.
Yeah, and it was great. So great space as well. And a big thank you to you and also Ben Rubenstein for hanging with us for that long stretch. I think people really appreciated it. And the numbers in the room kind of built up sort of after a couple of hours. And I think people really appreciated our analysis. I mean, what were we doing last night? Hesher. Well, the topic of discussion here, we'll bring it up on screen. Sunday Wire this week, New Orleans, the Vegas Tesla car bomb that wasn't a car bomb, that was quite a spectacle. But then the real fun begins in the information space. So we tried to unpack some of this and bring in some of our knowledge of mass shootings and also domestic terror events, which we've covered closely over the last 15 or so years. Hesher, and you've been right there in the trenches with us as well. Let's see if Ruckus can join us. We'll bring him up on stage. Ruckus, Adam Clark from the Daily Ruckus. So hopefully he's got his audio sorted out. You good, Ruckus?
I do. Everything is good. I'm just trying to sort out my OBS here, but everything's fine. Yeah, it's been an interesting, man, what a year it's been, and it's only been a few days, so it's only going to get wilder, unfortunately. But thanks for having me on the space yesterday. It was great to, get our heads together with so many great folks on that space, and there were a lot of great folks on that space, and I'm getting a lot of the listeners are great people too, so that was fantastic. And then thanks again for having me here to continue the discussion, sir.
So, first of all, Hesher, what did you make of the talk last night? And let's tee up a couple of things that we want to get into for this discussion here on the Sunday Wire. But first, I'll go to Ruckus after you. But Hesher, your thoughts on the discussion last night, and then what do you think are some of the areas that you want to focus on today when we're talking about basically ostensibly a psyop? I think there's kind of a consensus. The New Orleans thing, I mean, it's just screaming false flag, screaming staged op a la San Bernardino in 2015 and so many others, Oklahoma City, etc. Then the Las Vegas thing on the same day, but so bizarre. And then the media reaction afterwards, especially in the alternative, I use the air quotes again, alternative mainstream podcasting circuit. I mean, just to me, a torrent of disinformation and propaganda, speculation, entertainment. I don't know what to call it anymore, Hesher. So that's where we left it on that discussion last night. I'll hand it over to you. What do you think?
Yeah, well, on the plus side, I would agree with what Ryan said when he joined the room last night. I absolutely love that nobody's buying this. Like across the board, almost nobody is buying this. Unfortunately, on the other side of that, a lot of people are buying the conspiracy candy, the alternative story, the sort of, not so meta, conspiracy theory that comes along with it, because I would refer to that as probably the government approved alternative narrative, which is basically that Al-Qaeda and ISIS have infiltrated the country through the open border, and that this is now the kickoff to what is going to be the norm. So that's the unfortunate part. So again, fortunate that many people see this event and they see the ginned up reporting and all of the anomalies and the things that don't make sense, and they say, hey, this doesn't make sense. So that's a win for Western society right there, because it used to be something like this would happen and we would come out and we would do exactly what we did last night and what we're doing today. And people would tell us we're crazy. They'd tell us we're not, we're anti-American. They'd tell us we're, all this stupid stuff. No one wanted to hear it, back when the Dra Muhammad thing happened, or when the San Bernardino attack happened, or Hebdo. I mean, you just go down the list. You pointed out last night that 2015 was a big hot year for stuff like that. So I love that we're no longer considered social rejects for pointing out the obvious. But there's a lot of people that appear to be new to that game. So they see that something's off, something doesn't smell right. They immediately know something isn't right. So, I mean, that's a plus. That's a good thing, I suppose. We've moved along a little bit, but I mean, with the Overton window getting, nudged and shoved to the right, every couple months, it's like, okay, we got to catch up now, though. You got to catch up, and you got to realize that this is not organic. This is not just an organic thing that happened because the border's open and because America's, paying for their dastardly imperialism. It's very unlikely that is the case, especially when you see 2, 3, 4 of these incidents happen within 48 hours, because there were a couple other incidents that didn't get as much coverage, but that were kind of in the same genre. So I'm very pleased that, people are leaning into their skepticism. That's sort of step one. And like you said last night, you have to be well informed, and being well informed is something that can take years. You've got books to read, you've got videos to watch, you got documentaries to watch, you got podcasts to listen to, you've got on the ground work you can do yourself. There's historical basis for all this stuff. So it takes a long time to build up to that level of being well read and having the knowledge to protect yourself from the predatory mass media. And that's kind of the tagline for Boiler Room. That's what we like to do over there. And we all do that in our own ways. Ruckus helps people navigate the shark infested waters of the mass media, and we do the news omnibus here. So we've been focusing on this for a long time. So we have the skepticism, and we have the historical knowledge to go along with this. So for listeners and viewers that you mentioned last night that may not have that yet, that's okay. Keep at it and lean into that skepticism, and don't fall into the trap of belief and belonging. That's really where you get stuck.
Yeah, exactly. So we're saying that use your own critical faculties, do your own critical thinking. I think it goes without saying that you got to be skeptical of anything that's coming from the mainstream media in terms of a narrative about a terrorist attack in the U.S. In the West, because so many times, and we're going to give you receipts today. Okay, we're going to show you absolute proof, irrefutable proof of federal government involvement in staging major domestic terror events. Okay, so this is like beyond debate. So why would has that policy suddenly stopped? And of course not. It continues, and they've been doing it for decades. So anyway, we'll get into that and how you can use some of those skills to translate what's you're looking at in New Orleans on the 1st, but also slightly more difficult, this one in Vegas with the Tesla car bomb at the Trump Hotel. Certainly ticks a lot of boxes in terms of politics and symbolism, but there's also a bit of chaos and quite a lot of misinformation and propaganda that's coming on the back end of it, and we're going to unpack that. Ruckus, what did you think, firstly, about the discussion last night? Is anything from that space that you thought you wanted to focus on more today, or any areas that have jumped out about these two incidents, and just broader discussion on this theme?
Well, as I often do, unfortunately, is I can't help but think about what's next. What's the whole point of all this? Is if either of these things, if any of these things in particular, the Cybertruck one is an actual quote unquote, air quotes, folks, psyop, why? Who gets what out of this? It really doesn't make any sense. I mean, it can't. I mean, I know there's some pretty wild conspiracies we could go down. I mean, like, I did see some of these big X accounts come afterwards. I don't want to name anybody, but the ones where they the Cybertruck saved Americans today. Elon, you should make this an ad for Tesla. And I'm like, what are you doing, people? This is ridiculous. And then, we have the usual suspects, large alternative, air quotes, media platforms suggesting that the person inside the Cybertruck, without us really knowing anything about them, who he really was, if it was this guy, they're a real American hero. So, we have all that going on. But I want to focus on more interested in what does this ultimately lead to? What does it mean? Who benefits at the end? Which stocks should I be investing in to profit off of this wildness? I'm just kidding. But that's what the people do. So, if you see suddenly, oh, wow, Elon Musk might be the ultimate benefactor of this at the end of the day, because, I did searches earlier today, and I was shocked that there's hardly any actual, air quotes again, folks, news talking about the Cybertruck thing at all. And I'm like, all of it, 99% of it is coming from X. So I'm like, the X platform owns this psyop, so to speak. So if there's to be money to be had from the attention, and it is an attention economy, trust me, then Elon Musk is the ultimate winner. As so are all of his beneficiaries, the little Elon Musk sock puppet accounts. The ones, Patrick.
Yes, we'll talk about some of the sock puppets in a moment, but over to New Orleans, it's just here it is. That's the money shot there, an ISIS flag in the ground. I don't know if this is actually a real photograph. but this was put up by one of Elon's favorite accounts right afterwards. So I've not seen the source of this. Could be Photoshop, could be AI. Again, another problem with people putting unsourced material on X and calling it news. You are the media, says Elon. And so we have to sort of figure out where this came from. But as far as I can see at the moment, the first person I saw who put this up was Ian Miles Chong, a favorite account of Elon Musk. I'm still looking for it, where the provenance of this image is. I did not see that flag taken off the back of the truck where it was mounted in any of the other photos, but here it is. So we'll leave that for the moment. But there's the scene there, alleged perpetrator on the ground in Bourbon Street in New Orleans, wearing camo. We'll show you some of the anomalies around this briefly. But firstly, let's just talk about this New Orleans event. So the narrative here is clearly ISIS inspired. And also we have this bizarre New York Post journalist going in. We'll show that clip later as well, going in to basically spoil the crime scene at the apartment of the alleged perpetrator here. So we'll bring some of that information up briefly in a moment. But the first thing I'm looking at, and we talked about the methodology of the kind of daily shooter analysis that we developed over the years. But firstly, I'm looking to look at a number of things. I'm going to try to separate what can be confirmed with what is total speculation. And that's important because if you start speculating on the back of unconfirmed information, A, you're wasting time. And B, if you have a large audience, you're actually gaslighting your audience to send them down a rabbit hole based on an assumption that A, the person is who they say they are or who the media says they are, and B, were they actually driving the truck or the car? In this case, we do have some confounding evidence, even from the FBI's own release on this, that if this is actually indeed the same person. Very strange. But anyway, ex-Army, Fort Bragg connection. The same with the alleged victim or perpetrator in Las Vegas, Fort Bragg, active duty or veteran, I'm not sure, recently active, special forces. We have that. Plus, the Fort Bragg connection also extends to Ryan Ruth, the alleged or second Trump attempted assassination. Very strange character. So are all these people somehow involved in psychological operations at Fort Bragg? Legitimate question. So we're just throwing that out there. That's a commonality. What is not a commonality is the political symbolism or motivation MO behind each event. New Orleans is, to me, the most important one. And it's interesting how X is completely, and YouTube and the celebrity special forces podcast circuit is focusing on this you-know-what show in front of the Trump Hotel with the Tesla on fire. I'm going to call it a dumpster fire because that's exactly what it is. But New Orleans, to me, is more consequential because it's got the ISIS theme. You got a former Army vet who used to work for Deloitte, it's a Big 8 accounting firm. It's really strange. Totally not a profile of an ISIS person, right? So, but this matches the MO of San Bernardino in December of 2015. And just to refresh people's memory, this terrorist attack, this unlikely terrorist attack from the unlikely perpetrators, this couple, at the back end of Inland Empire, San Bernardino, Los Angeles bedroom community. I mean, completely strange, in a civic building that has no value in terms of politics or anything at all. The whole thing doesn't make sense. But that was deemed afterwards to be, quote, ISIS inspired. And you have to remember, the United States had not mounted a major intervention in the Middle East to fight ISIS up to that point. But because that was deemed as a domestic terror event, i.e. an ISIS attack on U.S. soil, that was the beginning of the legal trigger through the NDAA, authorization of military force, use of military force, AUMF, I think it is, and to deploy in Syria and Iraq to fight ISIS. It was literally that completely dubious and dodgy so-called domestic terror attack in San Bernardino in December of 2015. And then another commonality, afterwards, CNN ransacked the apartment of the alleged bombers, the couple, just 24 hours or so after the event. It was the strangest, most bizarre thing. Rifling through their drawers, picking up their IDs. I mean, it's weird. It's almost like if that was a crime scene, it would immediately be spoiled, and you're tampering with evidence. You're contaminating the crime scene. So that led us to believe at the time that this was not a serious criminal investigation. This was not a serious counterterrorism investigation, i.e., they weren't seriously considering these perpetrators. So something else happened. We found out there was a multi-agency fusion drill on site that concluded, if I'm not mistaken, just 48 hours before I think this San Bernardino event took place. Hence, that's why you had 1,000 first responders on the scene within like an hour and a half or something, including like multiple mobile command centers. And it's just, the overkill on that, like so many of these events, was just ridiculous. But it was because there was a multi-agency fusion drill, terrorism drill, or whatever on site, pretty much. So all the assets were there. I mean, is that a coincidence? So all these things were racking up. Coincidence, more coincidences. And with New Orleans, I have not seen any evidence of a drill. That's one of the things, of course, we look for. We also look for whether the perpetrator is a lone wolf or is a known wolf. The difference between a known wolf and a lone wolf is a known wolf is on the radar. He was on the radar of the security services. He was on the radar of the FBI. Oh, the police knew about him, etc. Like so many of these other very odd mass shootings where they're known wolves. In other words, they're on the radar of the security services. So then that goes into the conversation of, oh, this was a cock-up. Oh, we should have done better. This was negligence on the part. We're going to have an internal investigation. We're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. We're going to have an inquiry. So in a way, that helps the government and that helps the agencies because it diverts the conversation away from a cover-up to a cock-up. That is a legit paradigm that you see everywhere. Associated with all sorts of events like this. So anyway, all those are some of my red flags. That's kind of my thought process with the daily shooter. Hesher, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, well, it makes me think of the Uvalde school shooting also. That was another one that happened just on the outskirts of, a ongoing PR/law enforcement initiative here in Texas, known as Operation Lone Star, which costs Texas taxpayers I think like $23 million a year or something like that. And Operation Lone Star is sort of the PR/, from my assessment at least, Operation Lone Star is the PR/law enforcement wing for Greg Abbott here in Texas. And Operation Lone Star, those funds highly involved with a lot of the border shenanigans that we've seen in the last 4 years. And yeah, when that event happened, you had I think it was like 130 or somewhere between 100 and 200 various law enforcement personnel there. You had Border Patrol, you had DEA, you had FBI, all these people there. All the different flavors of uniforms and acronyms you could imagine. Yet, no one went into that building for 71 minutes. It was, so again, you see sort of that happening right on the cusp, right on the edge of a big PR or military/law enforcement set of experimentation, or something like this. I'm not exactly sure what you would classify Lone Star as, but I found that to be very interesting. And you mentioned the there's a couple things, Patrick. Number one, I have a question, actually. Maybe you guys can clear this up for me. After the New Orleans attack, I started seeing reports of people having been shot. And I'm still confused by this. Maybe I've just missed some of the mainstream reporting, and there's a gap perhaps in my understanding of the mainstream's perspective on this. But let me, if you could bring up my share tab here, let me play this video for you, and maybe you can unwrap the confusion or indulge in it with me. But here you go. This is Alabama woman shot during New Orleans terror attack, sharing her story.
Tonight, a Mobile woman who survived the terror attack in New Orleans is describing the horror and chaos she experienced on Bourbon Street. Alexis Scott Wyndham was shot New Year's Day. The bullet is still lodged in the 23-year-old's foot. NBC 15's Andrea Ramey brings us her survival story.
Alexis Scott Wyndham rang in the new year in New Orleans with 7 other friends from Mobile. The Blunt High School graduate says they were about to call it a night when Shamsuddin Jabbar barreled down Bourbon Street.
We heard something go boom, 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 and people were screaming, and I looked to the left, and a truck was coming down like the street, and he was halfway on the sidewalk too. He was just running people over like it was nothing.
She says the truck the terrorist was driving hit her and knocked her to the ground. At first, Alexis thought he ran over her foot, but as she tried to get up and run away, she saw blood pouring out. Her best friend FaceTimed with her mother, Trifina, who directed them to make a tourniquet with Alexis' sock to slow down the bleeding.
It was like a turn on switch. It's my baby. I gotta make sure she can be able to come home safe.
Alexis said Good Samaritans then took her and her friend to the hospital. As she got up, that's when she began to understand the gravity of what happened.
To my left and my right, 2 dead people. It was a man on the corner. He was shot, I think in the head. It was blood. His blood was just leaking. His eyes were open. They were still trying to help him, but it was too late. And the other person on the side, he was just laid down on the ground, flat. He was just down. He wasn't moving or nothing. Then as I looked down the street, it was just bodies everywhere.
She says her friend, Brandon Whitsett, a Viger High School graduate, was also injured and is still in the hospital in New Orleans.
It's like the truck hit one whole side of him.
She says 2 of her other friends were also hurt, but not seriously.
How can you do this to people? How could you do this? That's just something I couldn't really wrap my mind. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I'm sorry. I just think he's mental ill.
I'm just thankful. Like it could have been worse. Like when people was coming to the hospital, they were looking for their family members, and some of them weren't even there. They were dead. So they were just telling them like, sorry for your loss, and they would just bust out crying. So I couldn't do nothing but thank God that I only got shot in my foot.
Andrea Ramey, NBC 15 News.
So what is that? Is he mowing people over and shooting them in the feet outside the? I mean, they're not saying where the bullets.
Was he in the truck with the gun out there while he's going like 80 miles an hour down the back of Bourbon Street, out the window, driving on one hand and then shooting out the other? Like what in the world are they talking about? So did you see any other reports talking about shooting, or was this a media malfunction?
I honestly don't know. I don't know. I probably should have looked into some more mainstream articles to see if this was explained in some way, but when I saw that, my head exploded and I had to walk away from the screen. I just bookmarked it and it was like, this doesn't make sense.
Oh, so we have to wait till there's information. Yeah, I mean, because it could be completely unrelated. We don't know anything at this point.
It could be shot by police. Oh, that would be.
Or Hesher, actually, believe it or not, the first thing I thought of is I thought there was a bunch of good old boys who thought when this guy was, that they pulled out their gas trying to help. And then unfortunately, innocent bystanders, unfortunately, don't be doing that unless you know what you're doing, people.
That would be good for gun restriction narratives, I think. If that was the case. So you just blown the game there.
Giving them good ideas,
Yeah, one of them had a bump stock as well and managed to get quite a few more shots off in defense of freedom and liberty. Look, so that's interesting. So again, what we're saying, Hesher, here is, we'd like to get more of an explanation of what happened there, because isn't that an interesting detail? This would be a first. Mowing people down with a truck and shooting at the same time. Yeah, in an alleyway,
like something out of a John Woo movie or something like that.
Video game, Grand Theft Auto, right?
This is more. It does add an air of. It spices up the story a little bit, actually. So that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. You've absolutely scrambled our brains. Thank you very much for that, Hesher. So we'll go with some of these visuals and take a look at it. But I'll also remark that there's no was there, I don't know, there wasn't a manifesto. That's something that we look at, which is really shady. Is this kind of, the quote manifesto is always like somehow, sent to a TV station or a newspaper saying, this is why I've done this pointless terrorist attack that will achieve nothing, and I'll end up dead, and I guess may or may not kill anybody, I'm not sure, and it's no point, and I'm not connected with ISIS even though I'm flying the ISIS flag. I mean, there's so many different. Oh, by the way, Hesher, if you look at this photo on screen, Ruckus as well, you'll see that the back tire is deflated. Does that mean that the tire was shot out? And if so, if the tire was shot out, could some of those bullets have hit innocent bystanders in the area? And that would be interesting, especially if the person who is firing at the tire is somehow involved in the event. We're just throwing that out there as a possibility. Of course, we're not even speculating. We're just talking hypothetically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, exactly. And it's like, anyone who's, properly trained with a firearm is not going to be just shooting randomly, trying to stop this. You know what I mean? If you're if you're good with your pistol, and you had a straight shot into the cab from the front, like it was coming right at you or something, I could see that maybe happening. But to picture people pulling out their blasters and trying to shoot tires out on a crowded street, that is ridiculous stupidity. If that is what happened, be it from law enforcement or from bystanders. So I don't know. I feel like if that really was if that woman really did get shot in the foot and that really is how that happened, this should be explained. There's a set of forensics and news that should go along with it. But rather than that, what I'm seeing is that video. And do I trust that video? No, not at all. Not even a little bit. And the whole thing with like calling your mom and having your mom tell you how to like make a tourniquet out of a sock. I'm sorry. I don't think there's a vein that you can bleed out from in your foot. I don't think you need a tourniquet. I don't know why that was included. It was just sort of like weird superfluous details that feel like conspiracy candy to me, quite honestly.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Ruckus, on any of these items? Just in general, go ahead.
Well, I was curious. I mean, because I've heard people bring up the whole the FBI meme. You know the one, right? He was on our radar, right? Has that been confirmed? I mean, where's that coming from, or is that just speculation everywhere?
I haven't heard that he was on the radar of the FBI. It's something commonly that you'll see afterwards. Nicholas Cruz is a good example. There's like already been flagged as being psychologically unstable with firearms, and all of a sudden he appears at the Parkland school shooting.
There was the one thing that stood out to me about this one so far, and I did mention it briefly, by the way, for people who don't know, that's the meme that I was talking about. Say the line, he was on our radar. But the thing is that the FBI Agent Nosering, the lovely lady with the nose ring, that was fascinating, came out and immediately said, this is not a terror event. And I remember, historically speaking, that when they want to sell the narrative that this was terror, they would usually come right out and say, this was terror. And we've seen this type of thing before, usually to hide the identity and do a DEI thing. But the world has moved on from that since Trump has been reelected again. I know he's not in power yet, but pretty much everybody's dropped that whole nonsense. So it's almost like they did this reverse psychology on purpose, saying that it wasn't terrorism so that people would run with the narrative and understand, hey, this is what we're doing. It's a bit on the nose with that nose ring. I don't know. I just found the way they treated it very strangely.
I agree, Ruckus. And so that was like a red flag, a red rag to a bull, basically. To the conservative base, we'll look at, an African-American female FBI spokesperson who's at a conference with the Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. And so she's coming out and saying, we don't think this is a terror attack at the beginning. So that set off the conservatives on fire, and Fox News, of course, immediately. In the same way that, if you want to sell a narrative, sometimes it's, quite ingenious, actually, at the beginning. I'll tell you a good example of this was the lab leak narrative, because Facebook was censoring it early on. that basically the whole quote freedom movement and conservative base thought, oh, Mark Zuckerberg's censoring it, it must be true, ergo it's automatically true, because they tried to suppress it. So it's a little bit of reverse psychology there, and it works. It's people use that as proof that it's true. So here all that did was just turn it into more polarized, and this became a polarized narrative, because so the immediate reaction was from the right, from Fox News, from the celebrity podcasting circuit, was that, oh, this is because of the southern border. This is what happens. Biden's weak on the border. Okay, so this is what happens. The ISIS is coming over the Mexican border. And this is basically a rehash of this talking point that kind of was launched in like 2012, 13, Al-Qaeda coming over the southern border, then Duncan Hunter.
They literally brought that video back out from the past with the dude who dressed up like Osama bin Laden and crossed the border. Who was that? I can't remember now. Such a joke.
Joe Biggs.
Somebody like that.
so thank Alex Jones for that one. So yeah, ISIS is coming over the Mexican border. I mean, just ridiculous. Douglas McGregor then threw gasoline on the fire, saying Hamas was plotting to invade America in Mexico. Basically, we have intelligence from intel sources that Hamas and Hezbollah have sleeper cells all over Central America. They're coming up through the Darien Gap. So what you do is you combine an emotive issue like immigration, legitimate issue, actually an actual thing happening, and you combine it with Islamic terror. Okay, and it's absolutely a lethal cocktail once that's injected into the conversation. So that's what happened here. So it had taken on a partisan kind of talking point dimension there. And again, it's Biden's fault, it's the Democrats. And so everyone knows the border is a catastrophe. So we don't need to litigate that. That argument's actually already been won. And what's interesting was because, and I'll just throw this out, because Kamala Harris was getting battered on the border issue, Biden before her, and then when Biden jumped out of the race and Kamala came in, the Democrats went hell for leather on ICE apprehensions and deportations. So you look at the uptick of apprehensions and deportations hit record highs in the last 4 months. And that's because they were freaking out, panicking that this was going to sink their electoral chances. And of course it did. This is one of the issues that really destroyed the Democrats in the election. So the point I'm making here is the border issue has already been acknowledged. And when Trump comes in, the whole policy is going to get reversed in a big way, and who knows, the rest of the wall might even go up. So like that argument's already been won. So why would you intentionally add that into this story when this person is an American, U.S. Army veteran, military, no previous record of anything, and yet they're combining this with the border, and they're saying, and adding, and I'll bring up this graphic here. This is Shawn Ryan. This is a popular podcast. He says he's a Navy SEAL, CIA contractor, host of the Shawn Ryan Show. So he had a guest on, I think his name is Shoemate, I'm not sure. And had a big interview that millions of people watched, and everyone's freaking out afterwards of what was said here. Iranian man pads being smuggled over the border. So they're ticking the ISIS box, the Iran box, and the China box. So they released an email. We'll get to some of this. You know, Chinese anti-gravitational UFO tech drones off the coast of New Jersey. Oh my God, he's a whistleblower. This is the Vegas car bomber as well. So I mean, the disinformation, all the crazy propaganda and speculation that came afterwards on this has completely flooded the information space. And if you go to listen to spaces, there are literally people freaking out. They're saying, they're sitting there, 200 or 300 people in a room saying, oh my God, did you watch the Shawn Ryan interview? And some woman said, oh yes, I watched it 3 times. Oh, I can't believe it. I'm so traumatized. What they said there. And then, you know, you have to, we're saying to people, you got to step back and saying, yeah, that's been said by 2 guys. So you have one spook talking to another spook about an alleged car bomber with an email that they say is unconfirmed, and about Chinese anti-gravitational UFO alien tech. I mean, at some point, like, you have to hit pause and say, like, what exactly here do you actually know is empirically true? And let's just backtrack the conversation a little bit. But this isn't what these people do. And it becomes an orgy of speculation. And so the other person interview, I don't know if you have a clip from that interview or not, Hesher, that you want to share with us, but definitely if you do,
Yeah.
or if there's any other items you want to sort of tee up this other story with first.
I do actually. Let me fill in the blank from that last question I just threw out there in that last clip. Spore found this for me while we were talking. So this is at ABC News. New Orleans attack updates. This is published January 1st. Headline: New Orleans attack updates. Suspect inspired by ISIS was military veteran. So there they are saying it like it's fact, inspired by ISIS. Noting he's a military veteran. And here's the interesting part that kind of fills in what we were talking about. They say, after mowing down numerous people over a 3-block stretch on the famed thoroughfare while firing shots into the crowd, the suspect, identified by sources as Shamsuddin Jabbar, age 42, allegedly got out of the truck wielding an assault rifle and opened fire on police officers. Law enforcement officials briefed on the incident told ABC News this. Officers returned fire, killing Jabbar, U.S.-born citizen from Texas. At least 2 police officers were injured, one by gunfire and the other when the officer was pinned by the truck. So there you go. They make it sound like he was indeed firing shots into the crowd while driving and then got out of the car. So there you go. For what it's worth, that's the mainstream fill in on odd video that we just watched. And I do have the clip of this shoe guy on Shawn Ryan also that we can check out.
Yeah, let's have a look at that. And we'll go back to, well, so we're going back and forth between New Orleans and Las Vegas on this. And just just quickly on the New Orleans thing. And I think this is important point to make right now. Let me see if I can add a presentation screen to that as well. But if you look at our 2025 predictions, I talked about this in the predictions. I said the next front for the United States is a war against ISIS. It's to reboot the war against ISIS. And Trump is the perfect candidate to do that because he claims that he defeated ISIS in his first term. And ISIS, of course, has had a revival because of the U.S., NATO, Turkish, Israeli-backed HTS al-Qaeda in Syria taking over Damascus. And all of a sudden, ISIS is let off the chain in Al-Tanf and northeastern Syria as if by magic. The prisons are emptied and ISIS is on the loose. So, I mean, it's a perfect thing that's been set up. U.S. have already launched airstrikes against ISIS, by the way. But what the U.S. need to do is re-up their deployment in Iraq and Syria because the Iraqis don't want them there. The Iraqi parliament has told the U.S. to go pound sand and get out twice. And the U.S. has said, no, we're not leaving. You have no sovereignty. We're going to stay. We're fighting ISIS, so to speak. And then the same with northeastern Syria. The United States has been illegally occupying 25% of Syria's sovereign territory since 2017. That came under Trump. Of course, it stayed under Biden, and Trump is back. So he's going to, of course, want to continue that deployment as well. So, yeah, Ruckus has brought that up. Yeah, if you scroll down to the geopolitical section, Ruckus, I'll bring that up on screen with Ruckus is showing us. Right there, you can see Trump's fight against ISIS. It's right there. So just go to our main 21st Century Wire page, and we'll explain. This was actually in our predictions. And we've been talking about this for weeks, by the way, that this is exactly what they're doing. They're teeing it up for Trump. So I see the New Orleans story as just that. It's an attempt to sort of tee up that narrative again and give some kind of a legal justification or some kind of a mechanism to call for a re-up of the NDAA or, increase the authorization of military force in the region. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. It just kind of reminds me of San Bernardino in there. But back to, let's just get that out of the way. We'll go back to the journalist in the yoga pants as well. We'll show you that on screen later. Yeah. But anyway, here we are, Hesher. So this is the big interview that everybody was watching. And so this is Mr. Shumat. Don't have you have more information on this person who's the guest here. And it's like some big bombshell interview. They're coming with like intel, right? And there's an email that's been sent, Hesher. Like what's going on? Give us the kind of scoop here.
So what we're about to see is this guy, Sam Shumat, Sam Shu. I keep calling him Sam Shu. I don't think that's his full name. That's kind of what I've been referring to him as.
Shumat.
And he, like, if you look into this guy, his sort of social media narrative is that of a guy who left his post with the government and the military, or as a military contractor. I'm not sure what his status was, but over the jab. He didn't want to take the jab, or he took the jab and was injured by it. I'm not sure which, but then he built this whole social media presence, and it's sort of just a like milquetoast, like right-wingy, Con Inc. sort of meme level, Instagram and probably X presence. So, he's already kind of a person, and he's also been active. Like I've seen other people from the Intel community saying they've been known of this guy, and he's got issues with Ukraine. I believe he's like pro-Ukraine, fighting, and I think Shawn Ryan is too. I think a lot of these guys. We talked about this concept of what military operators consider bad guys, and if they're told that's the bad guy, their thought process is get them. We do our job. That's the bad guy. We go to work. It's kind of like that mindset. So for them, Russians are bad guys, ISIS are bad guys, Hamas are bad guys, right?
Muslims.
Yes, Muslims, exactly. Of course. So anyways, this guy, he's like, in the second phase of his career or whatever, and he's like this, operator, influencer type of guy. A lot of characters like this out there. And he claims that he received an email from the Cybertruck bomber, Matt Leinenberger, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just play it so you can kind of see it. He's about to describe to Shawn that he got this email. He didn't think much of it until the event happened. He went back, he reread the email, he started, talking to his battle buddies in his text group. So he's kind of describing that right now, and he's going to describe that real quickly and play a piece of audio, like an audio message he recorded and sent to his buddy, and then he's going to read the email. So it'll take a couple minutes to get through it, but here we go.
Okay. I woke up and I said, OF, I'm shaking. This guy emailed me 2 days ago. I'm not playing. And then he said, damn. And then this was my response to him at 8:48. Like, just woke up.
Dude, I'm fucking shaking, bro. You don't understand. This guy emailed me and told me he was being watched by the FBI and Homeland Security. We're going to do anything.
Okay, so just what we're looking at here, we'll go back to this, but what this is somebody who's making the story about his text messages between him and his buddy that have nothing to do with the bomber and their reaction. So he's trying to pull you into that emotional state, like, oh man, we had this emotional exchange with my buddy. I got to share it with you, man, because that's a big story. Like, my emotional exchange with my buddy is a big story to show you how real this is.
Mm-hmm.
Pulling you into the story. I mean, this is kind of like the lowest level this isn't like journalism. Okay. This is like entertainment. This is kind of like, reminds me of reality TV. Survival Island and all this sort of crap. I'm just saying this is kind of silly. And it really it's a very weak kickoff for this interview. But go ahead, Hesher. Sorry.
To him because he had a VBID. I'm not fucking playing, dude. I have the email. I am shaking, man.
I'm literally shaking.
And it goes from there. And
what's a VBID, Hesher?
VBID. He's going to explain it, but yeah.
Spec Ops, VBIDs. I mean, you've got all these acronyms with military vernacular, and I'm just so sick of it.
I know.
Because I know people who are, veterans and special forces, active duty. They don't talk to me like that.
Mm-mm.
They don't throw acronyms at me all the time, but it's meant to draw you into this like special club that we have the intel and trust us. We couldn't possibly be leading you up a garden path here because we work for the CIA, but we're journalists as well.
Yeah,
So,
we're breaking the story.
We're breaking this. This is a bombshell story. We've got an email. We don't know who sent it. I mean, Shawn Ryan at the beginning of this, when he's saying that we can't. I'll quote him. He says, we're not necessarily validating what came in that email. And then they go on to talk about the email for a half hour. I mean, it's almost like a joke.
Right. It's like the warning at the beginning of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds or something. If you tuned in after that warning.
Oh my God, this is totally Grover Mills. And this extended afterwards with Shawn Ryan saying, putting out a video we'll probably show it on Twitter saying, this story is too heavy. I'm taking my family and we're disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like totally Orson Welles.
Yeah.
So like they're drawing their audience through this whole process to get the audience invested in not just the story, but in the person telling the story, you see. So, I mean, this is just entertainment is what it is. It's not journalism. And as we'll find out, this isn't actually a story, but go ahead.
I sat there for probably an hour talking to my wife. I'm shaking. I can't even think straight. Like normal day is shot. And I didn't know what I want to do. Do I sit on this? Do I do nothing with it? I've got to tell somebody. I've got to tell the FBI at least, because this is huge. This is all over the news. And then I was like, well, dude, this guy wanted to get in contact with Shawn Ryan. So let me get this to Shawn Ryan. See?
So this is his way of telling this is hilarious. So it's something that he thinks is attached to a crime, a high profile crime. And he thinks, oh, dude, I got this email and this guy wanted to get on Shawn Ryan. I know Shawn Ryan's producer. I know how to find him. That's really hard. It's linked in the top of his Twitter description. I mean, anybody could hit up that producer. And of course, whoever that producer is, the shark that they are, was like, yes, let's break it. This is going to be great. This is going to be
Airplane. You remember that film Airplane? Get me Jeff Stryker. Yeah. Somebody get me Jeff Stryker. No, I mean, we're making jokes about this, but we're getting into the realm of entertainment, reality TV. It's not journalism, folks. But anyway, go ahead.
Who thinks this way? Who thinks I need to tell the FBI, so I'm going to go on the Shawn Ryan podcast?
There's only one person who will be able to tell this story to. It's Shawn. It's Jack Ryan. It's
one show that I know the FBI is watching has got to be Shawn Ryan. So I'm
better believe it. So, and of course, that has nothing to do with the disinformation campaign. If that's the case,
Yeah. Right.
Move along. Nothing to see there.
Yeah.
If I can get with him, and I had a buddy who knew your producer, and we went from there. But
wow.
Wow.
You want to read the email?
Yep. So this email came in on December 31st at 10.
I love how he almost said manifesto. You want to read the mail?
10:42 a.m. That is Tuesday. He said, in case I do not make it to my decision point or on to the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until 1 January and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones, he puts that in quotes, he says drones, is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China and the East Coast, but throughout history, the US. Only we in China have this capability. Our OPSEN, that's Operation Center, our OPSEN location for this activity in
OPSEN. So help us with the acronyms, Hesher, so we can keep up with the intel to make sure that we're processing this professionally. OPSEN, Operation Center, right? All right. Okay.
It is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they used the balloon for SIGINT.
Hesher, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got your audio. Hesher, so China's been doing this for years.
Mm-hmm. Take his word for it. Just believe him.
So China's been launching anti-gravity UFO drones out of submarines off the coast of the Atlantic for years.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's just move along. Nothing to see there. Just it's part of the narrative. So I mean, at that point, and so when I replied in his thread here, Shawn Ryan, when this went out 2 days ago, I said, and mark my words, I said, at best, the guy who wrote it is batshit crazy. If it's real, he's a paranoid schizophrenic, probably thinks he's a targeted individual, a TI. Okay. So if you know what that means, you know what I'm talking about. It's a big rabbit hole, and needs therapy, needs help, basically. At worst, it's a fabrication. So it's either somebody who's crazy or it's a fabrication. And as a journalist, is that a story?
No.
If I can't verify who sent me that email, and it's not just somebody winding me up, trying to make me or my show part of a disinformation propaganda campaign, which is what the CIA do. It's what the US government does with mainstream media. That's what they do with mainstream media. And so now we have the new mainstream media. The celebrity podcast circuit have taken the place of CNN, ABC, NBC, and Fox. They're doing exactly the same thing that the mainstream media do. They're performing. They have the audience now, and they've shifted the practice and injected a lot of this garbage into the new independent mainstream media. That's how I'm reading this here.
Yeah, and it wasn't all that long ago that a CIA agent or former agent was caught on one of those gotcha videos, the like James O'Keefe style gotcha videos, talking about how they can go after anyone they want, and he was the one that was talking about nudging. He was talking. This is a classic example potentially of CIA style nudging. You give someone a piece of information on social media or email because it's very simple to predict what they're motivated by, what their response to it will be, and they're very good at picking out people that will take action, right? So this guy's action is to go on the Shawn Ryan show and use that as a reason to say, oh, I'm going on here because the FBI needs to know about this.
And just to put some meat on the bones of what Hesher's just said, very important. The nudging goes from the intelligence agency and their whole propaganda gaggle blob. They nudge right up to the White House level. Avril Haines, former intelligence director under Trump, she pushed these photos to Trump of dead birds at the Skripal poisoning site in Salisbury, England, and used that to basically drive Trump crazy. And they took some anti-Russian measures after that. It turns out that she was misrepresenting what she was showing the president of the United States. That's the head of the intelligence. You can go look that up, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to take my word for it. So that's nudging. Trump gets nudged. His daughter nudged him. Ivanka nudged Donald Trump, saying, look at the babies in Syria, this terrible chemical weapons attack. You remember that?
Yeah.
And he's on record saying, well, they showed me these photos and my daughter or somebody, I don't know how that story got eventually released, about Ivanka imploring her father, the president, to do something about this alleged chemical weapons attack in Syria. So Trump was being nudged. So what I'm saying, guys, is if the president can be nudged by the intelligence services and whoever else is in the orbit of the White House, then certainly people in the media can be nudged. Mainstream journalists get fed fake intelligence, and some of them make their careers by using their sources, and they'll feed them a real story. It'll help them get a promotion. Then they'll start feeding them fake stories. Iraq WMDs, perfect example. New York Times. And so the Times will keep these people on staff because of their great sources. So this is how the intelligence services plays with journalists. It's how they reel them in and they've captured them. I'm not talking about paid people necessarily on the payroll of the CIA. I'm talking about people that are just too eager to basically hoover up whatever is being sent to them and then running with it. We see that in the alternative media. And you see it. You're seeing. Personally, I think that's what we're seeing here. I think they've just found an easy mark in this guy. He's eager to get, increase his followers have gone through the roof after this. His clout and everything is like through the. Even though the information he's sharing is bogus, probably his clout has gone through the roof. So anyway, we'll go back to. We'll try. I'm going to try not to stop the clip, but I will call timeout. Listen, like the referee on the football pitch, I'm going to pull a yellow card.
Yeah. Well, this one's just asking for it. All right, we'll get back to it. He's about to throw out ISR. That's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. There,
ISR, everybody.
It has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they used the balloon for SIGINT and ISR, which are also part of the integrated.
Red flag. Hold on, yellow flag. The balloon. Wait, hold on. Are we talking about the Chinese balloons now?
Yes.
This is just ticking all the boxes. Yeah. I love this story. They're not leaving anything out. So the Chinese balloons that drove the conspiracy, the QAnon crowd, drove them crazy. I remember when that happened, Mario Nafal, who is the Daily Mail of X, okay, he ran a space about the Chinese balloons. And I was on the panel with Tom Fenton from Judicial Watch. I think Sebastian Gorka must have parachuted in as well. They had all these like ex-Intel experts and whatnot. They're all talking like they thought this was some kind of Chinese satellite or some sort of unidentified UFO. I mean, they spent hours speculating. And I said, it's probably just a weather balloon or it's nothing. And why are you scrambling fighter jets to shoot down a freaking balloon? And it turns out, and then everyone's like shouted at me saying, oh my God, how can you say that? Then the press conference came from the White House and they said, yes, it's just a fucking balloon. And the room went quiet and it's like nobody was challenging me after that. But it just shows you how eager these people are to run with conspiracy theories, like crazy conspiracy theories. So now we have this cocktail that isn't missing any ingredients. It's got every single conceivable talking point in it, Hesher. This is like a tapestry of propaganda. Anyway, go ahead.
All right.
System. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate.
Whoa. Checkmate. Unlimited payload capacity. What the F does that mean?
What does that mean?
Unlimited payload capacity. Hold on for a minute. Like, guys, let's just unpack that for a moment. So we've got a UFO with anti-gravitational technology that the Chinese supposedly have that we've never heard of. And they've been parked off the Atlantic coast for years. And it's got unlimited payload capacity. Does that mean that it can lift up anything?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is bad news for Elon and SpaceX because Elon, you're out of business now. Because there's now anti-gravitational tech with unlimited payload capacity, and you're sending up rockets with freaking fuel. I mean, this is bad news for SpaceX, Elon. What do you think? The share prices should be plummeting, right? If this was a real story, SpaceX shares would just be like through the floor, and everyone's looking for, a Chinese avionics company to invest in because the Chinese are so far ahead of us.
Well, it's competition and a motive, Patrick.
I mean, come on.
Suggesting.
I mean, this is just getting silly.
Yeah. So they can take a Chinese powered anti-gravity UFO, launch it from a submarine off the coast of the United States, and it can carry
the Chinese have undetectable submarines, apparently. So
right.
It's like
so they can hover over the White House with 12 elephants on board, I guess, if they want.
Yeah. Good luck, elephants.
Yeah.
U.S. government needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them, and what the way forward is. China is poised to.
China is employing what? The government? The U.S. government? I'm confused. It makes no sense. It's how the U.S. is employing it. Like, so we have it too, and we're employing it. I don't understand.
It's a little bit vague, but anyway, he's a top special forces guy who wrote the email, so we have to pay attention to it.
Yeah,
it's top OPSEC stuff.
Right.
Attack anywhere in the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland or FBI, and they are looking to.
Okay, there's a thing called a targeted individual. Okay, and I'm not downplaying this as I know there's a lot of people who get sucked into this. There's an online cult, unfortunately, that pulls a lot of vulnerable people in and convinces them that they're targeted individuals and that all this space tech is being used against them and stuff like that. And some people are could be someone with PTSD, could be somebody who's got serious, real clinical mental issues, and they're pulled into this online targeted individual cult. And so I'm looking at this email. If this was written by this guy, I would say that he is in serious mental problems. That's the first thing. And that's what I originally replied a couple of days ago when I was on Shawn Ryan's thread. I said, at best, this guy's batshit crazy. At worst, it's a fabrication. One of those two. So they're not exploring any of those two possibilities here. Instead, they're pumping out to their 10 million subscribers or whatever a completely ridiculous narrative and not questioning it and just leaving it out there like a limited hangout for everybody to consume and drive people paranoid. I mean, you're doing a lot of damage to people by using your credibility that you built up with your brand and then basically using it to fire hose sewage down the throats of your audience. Sorry to be cruel, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
To move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico, but won't because they know I am armed and I have a massive VBID. Let me pause right there for a second. So he says a massive VBID. When I was talking to the FBI yesterday, they didn't know what a VBID was. I had to explain what that acronym meant. Literally.
You fucking serious?
Dead serious. I said it twice and he goes, you said that word VBID. Can you tell me what that is? For your audience, a VBID, for your audience who has not been in the GWAT for the last 20 years, a VBID is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. In layman's terms, a car bomb, what we saw at Trump Tower.
So he just insults the audience there, basically.
We're just not in the community. I'm not in the IC or the OPSEC community or the whatever community. I didn't know what a VBID was. I've actually
it means something completely different in the OnlyFans world. So he wanted to make sure people didn't go down the wrong rabbit hole, Patrick.
Don't confuse us more than we already are. Ruckus, please. We are ourselves vulnerable victims of this at the moment. So we're just trying to. Anyway, that's another for the list. Hesher, everybody, I just wanted to let you know that Hesher is compiling a glossary of all these arcane terms that are being used, and we'll post all these acronyms up so that you can be better informed when you're listening to your favorite podcasters in the Intel community. So I just wanted to make that clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, you too can LARP as an operator, as a normal sandwich eating American. So we'll get that set up for you.
So backing up, he says, I am armed and have a massive VBID. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me. Here's where he gets into the other stuff. And this is where we had to redact the names. Well, your producer redacted the names. I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimruz province, Afghanistan in 2019 by the admin, DOD, DEA, and CIA. I conducted targeting for these strikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of civcas, that's civilian casualties, that killed hundreds of civilians in a single day. U.S. FORA continued strikes after spotting civilians on initial ISR. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft in CENTCOM.
Okay, what's ISR?
That's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So think signal intelligence, using stingrays to capture people's phone communications, maybe Global Hawk flying above with cameras, that kind of thing, spy stuff.
Okay, so this is an interesting part of the interview. So what he's done here is he introduced something that sounds somewhat quasi-legitimate, i.e., as during his service time, the person who allegedly sent this email, when he was in Afghanistan, he witnessed bombings that took major civilian casualties, and this somehow is a war crime. basically. So what this does is this then signaling to the audience, the compassionate audience, that this is a whistleblower here, and whistleblowers are automatically afforded credibility, emotionally, and immediately make a connection with the public on that. That's when you cross the line from military over to civilian via the whistleblower route. Okay, so immediately you engender the respect, the sympathy of the audience. So why not lead with that part? But the fact that that's contaminated with Chinese UFO balloons just discredits the whistleblower component completely, because of course I'm questioning whether this person is completely insane. So whether paranoid schizophrenics also can invent past experiences. This is common for paranoid schizophrenic. So if that's what he is, and this is what I originally speculated it might be, somebody who's just insane. And so by injecting that, they've made it credible. So they brought the audience back and brought them back. So even anybody who was like slightly estranged at the beginning of this interview is now back, and they're paying attention. So this is real kind of yo-yo. I don't know what to call it, but demagoguery, I think, is a word I'm going to use here. It's just on the cusp of demagoguery, playing with people's emotions, fears, desires. Great propaganda.
Mm-hmm. Effective. It's working. I've talked to people that have been experiencing that same thing that you mentioned, where it's like, I'm so traumatized, I'm so worried, I'm so concerned. I've talked to multiple people that are that's their takeaway from this. And that's the intended effect. So if you're out there feeling that way, just keep in mind that is very likely the main intended effect of this whole dog and pony show.
The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear. I was part of that cover-up with US FORA and Agent Redacted of the DEA. So I don't know if my abduction attempt is related to either. I worked with Redacted IO staff on this as well as the response to Bala Murghab. Redacted commander at the time, Redacted can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war, because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. Then he says, for vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg or Matthew Livelsberger, an active duty 18 Zulu out of 110, that's 1st Battalion 10th Special Forces Group. My profile is public. I have an active TSSCI with UAP, USAP access.
What is USAP? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is. But I checked his credentials on
TSI, USAPE, IDE, TSA. What?
So TSSCI is the high level secret clearance. So a lot of government employees and military people, military contractors will get a secret clearance, and to most people that's just like, oh, okay, that person has a clearance. But there's another level up from a standard secret clearance, which is TSSCI. And that is like full compartmentalized security clearance, which means basically if you have a TSSCI clearance, you have a base commander or some sort of someone you're a subordinate to, and there's a security manager. So the security manager at your base is the one that would allow you into a SCIF, for example. A SCIF is basically a computer lab and a meeting place that is locked down. It has a keypad entry. You can't take any phones or anything like that into these rooms. That's where you would get on like the military SIPRNet and things like that. So this is someone who has gone through the vetting process, the very thorough vetting process of TSSCI. You're subject to random drug tests. You're not allowed to leave the country without talking to your security manager, telling them where you're going, why you're going there. You're not allowed to have social media exchanges with people in foreign countries. There's a lot of very specific rules. And if this person really did send this email and really did have, if everything was above board here, which clearly we're questioning, but if everything was above board, the amount of violations that have taken place, like, never mind the attack and everything, but just the amount of clerical and security, TSSCI security clearance holding rules that have been broken just by sending this email are enough to get someone sent to prison for a long time.
So let me ask you this, Hesher. If you were on SSRIs, serotonin uptake inhibitors, antidepressant meds, would that somehow compromise your ability to get high-level security clearance?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you don't have a criminal record and you don't have restraining orders against you, there's a good chance that wouldn't be a problem. But like, this is like, there is a lot of stability tests. There's a lot of like mental stability. There's a lot that goes into getting one of those clearances, and clearly someone who's a special operations guy, a Green Beret, they've already gone through so much vetting just to get to that position, to have that, to be the top tier operator. So, the idea that this guy's, having mental troubles, I mean, it would certainly appear that way, but it's kind of hard to swallow that narrative, knowing how much work people put in to become a Green Beret.
Unless he went to Fort Bragg and was the subject of some unknown experiment.
Well, there's that. There's the whole sheep dipping concept. And I would wager that they are out there. They are among those SOF influencers out there, are those like sheep dip type of people.
Yeah, sheep dipped, if people aren't familiar with that, this is like before you're released into the wild, you go under a certain type of conditioning and operational preparation for your new role outside, potentially of the military, but still working with the state or some state agency or the Pentagon or whatnot, or some operational cell or something like that. That's one interpretation of sheep dipped. And this is interesting because a lot of people might not be aware of this, but if you wanted to release somebody into the wild, i.e. the public, and become a civilian, but maybe inject them into the alternative media, you would do so with some kind of a story. You need a story, like they're a whistleblower, or they got fired for something. This is how you would do it. And this is how you get immediate street cred. And that becomes your new identity, as it were, as a professional. You have inside knowledge from your experience in the services, and you're a victim because you were trying to tell the truth, and you'd been trying to do the right thing, but your rights were violated, or you were misunderstood, and you've been persecuted, and now you're out here, and please help and support my channel. Basically, I don't know
if this guy's still alive, Patrick. He might be able to get himself the biggest podcast on the planet, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. It'd be I'm not even talking about him. I'm even talking about some of the people, out in the media information space, who have set themselves up as, ex-military experts on stuff. I'm just saying, because it makes sense, because there's plenty of them in the mainstream. There's plenty of these people in the mainstream controlling narratives, injecting disinformation, confusion, bamboozling the public, and promoting wars at any given opportunity, and promoting fear, and promoting the war on terror. I don't even need to explain or give examples of this, because they're just replete over the last 25 years. But anyway, one red flag on that last portion, Hesher, he mentioned that, so this is a military special forces guy in Afghanistan, supposedly has blown the whistle. Has anybody checked out, at the UN said it was a war crime. This claim in there, that's easily verifiable. He gave a location as well. But then he says the DEA, and that's the Drug Enforcement Ministry. So he's a military, but the DEA helped to make this story or whatever. What's the DEA have to do with an airstrike on Afghan civilians? That was weird. Anyway, I'm just flagging that.
It's like he's throwing everything at the wall, and that sheep dip topic. This guy, this Sam character that we're watching right here, he could potentially easily fit into that, because he used the COVID jab as sort of his his first victimization. Like, I'm out because of this, and that was I don't know when exactly that was. It was somewhere in the last 3 years, and the the two of those last 3 years, it's been a completely mainstream conservative talking point of outrage to go against the jab. You know, none of those people were doing that in 2020 and 2021, obviously. Like some of us who experienced what that would do to your
that's Shawn Ryan Hesher, or is that the other guy who does
Sam? Yeah, Sam.
Sam.
Yeah.
Sam Shoe something. He's the
Match.
prior jabbed guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Prior jab. And I've seen other people who also set themselves up as pundits on the back of the jab issue.
Right.
Too many actually to count in the last 2 years. So it's a very common thing. So could be a real thing, but we're just saying I automatically I'm going to be a little more skeptical of people who claim that they're in the intelligence game. And because, as Mike Pompeo told us, the one thing they teach you in intelligence is how to lie and how to spin narratives and things like that. So I'm just saying, it's not necessarily good for your credibility to be ex-intel in working in a journalistic field. It's not, to me. I actually think it's a liability. And I've worked with former spooks, or I've shared panels with former spooks. Some of them are, so the ones that I've shared panels with that are credible are analysts. But anybody who is doing like other work and stuff like that, some of them were a little bit shady, especially some of the ex-CIA guys. Now there's others that, to me, their credibility is unimpeachable, like Ray McGovern, for instance, who served, I don't know, 6 U.S. presidents or something crazy, got his commission from JFK. He's been an anti-war activist for decades. Okay, that guy, I have nothing but praise and admiration and respect for Ray McGovern. And Larry Johnson is another example. Larry has been on the right side of almost every issue as far as I've been following him. So these guys are not like putting out fear porn about like ISIS coming over the southern border. Then we have this whole other class of ex-intel or Navy SEALs or whatever. Navy SEALs is a very marketable brand. And a lot of Navy SEALs, especially after the Bin Laden raid, but after Benghazi, have monetized their Navy SEAL credential in the media and the publishing space. So it's a very recognizable brand. Probably the first one to really do it is probably Jesse Ventura. But, he had a legit political career, governor of Minnesota. So, but the Navy SEAL brand is powerful, and it affords immediate respect and credibility. So my concern would be if somebody's using that and trading off it, but not necessarily doing a professional job, and maybe at worst involved in actual propaganda and disinformation voluntarily, or they could be doing it voluntarily just because they believe that's their worldview, that these are the bad guys, these are the good guys, and we need to go to war. So I don't know. I'm not saying that, they're all marionette puppets. What I'm saying is that they are performing that function.
Right. Yeah, it can get convoluted when especially for civilians, because civilians gravitate to people like this because, they are in many ways the best among us. They have had experiences that most of us can only imagine. There's a camaraderie, a brotherhood, a patriotism, and knowledge, that you can gain from these people. And, a lot of these people, like Tim Kennedy is another one that we'll get to in a minute here. Tim Kennedy is way closer related to this than some people might realize. But I mean, Tim Kennedy, he operates right here out of Austin. He runs Sheepdog Response. It's a place that many civilians go to get a download. They go there and they do a firearms course. They do, close combat, room clearing courses, stuff like this. Medical. I mean, you can really learn a lot of things from some of these people. You're gaining a skill set that you would not be able to gain as a civilian. And this is sort of a new phenomena here in America, and when it first started, there were a lot of people in the special operation and military communities that did not approve of, transferring this knowledge to American citizens. I myself have gone to some of these classes taught by Green Berets. And, when you hear some of them talk about it, it's like, I'll use Mike Glover as a great example. I took one of his classes and he brought this exact topic up. And he said, you know what? People used to criticize me and say, you can't do this. You shouldn't be training American civilians to defend themselves and to know military tactics. And his response is brilliant. He says, what are you talking about? You send us to foreign countries and train foreigners, foreign civilians. You had me training Afghani citizens to do these sort of things. And you're trying to tell me that I can't come back here and transfer that knowledge to American citizens as our society is like starting to show a lot of cracks and a lot of new forms of violence, you know? So it's the whole thing's really interesting when you think about it.
I mean, there's another aspect to that, Hesher, as we're talking about the Las Vegas Tesla supposed perpetrator stroke, victim in the bombing, his own bombing, Green Berets. Okay, so from those training courses, I can tell you from my experience, okay, and this is just what I heard at the range, the people that are shooting with, as you do, people talk. And Green Berets active duty in Ukraine. No secret, okay? Yeah. Active duty U.S. Green Berets in Ukraine, not just training, but also active in combat roles, okay? And they're recruiting other people from those training schools to go to Ukraine. So that's happening, and that's been happening for 2-3 years now, okay? That's a real thing. So Hesher, like, I'm interested in that story. And isn't that an interesting story? And all these people know about this, and they're not doing podcasts on it. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed as well, all the Benghazi Navy SEALs, all the Benghazi Special Forces OPSEC guys, okay? The one thing they never talk about, and only recently you might hear one or two admit it, but Christopher Stevens and people burning alive at the U.S. Facility in Benghazi. And they were shipping arms to Al-Qaeda, or what became al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda and HTS in Syria, the moderate rebels. That's what the story of Benghazi was. It was arms trafficking from the United States via the CIA and people working for the CIA, including contractors, including Navy SEAL and Special Forces contractors, trafficking arms to terrorists to overthrow Bashar al-Assad in 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, Operation Timber Sycamore. Let's throw a couple billion in there from Uncle Sam and traffic more weapons. That's the story. And how come all these Benghazi guys won't talk about that? Because that, if you're an author or a podcaster, or you're set yourself up as a quote journalist, how come why is it blackballed to talk about this for the last 10 years? I mean, so that's the problem I have with people who pose or are LARPing as journalists and this is the problem with people from intelligence who have embedded themselves in media, is all the interesting stuff that they might know about, they're not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
And so they right back to everything on the periphery, everything that fits a Democrat Republican mode for, divisive talking points. Like, that's all good. It's basically off-Broadway Fox News. That's what the podcasting circuit has become.
Yeah.
It's a huge disappointment, quite frankly.
It is. And it goes back to them holding that TSSCI clearance. They literally cannot. You know what I mean? Like, they cannot. It's like you can be out of the military, out of government service, whatever. You cannot go back and talk about things that were at that level. So anything like that, moving of munitions, stuff like this, that's all going to be in that separate internet, that separate, skiff. That's where all that stuff is. That's where all the receipts are from that. And those guys know dang well that if they start going in there and pulling those receipts out and showing stuff, they're going to get, an Edward Snowden style treatment. I mean, that's basically what's going to happen. You're not a whistleblower if you're breaking your TSSCI agreements. It's just they're mutually exclusive.
Right. And Official Secrets Act, OSA in Britain, same thing. same thing. So if you're X MI5, X GCHQ, or whatever, there's plenty of those running around in the media as well. They're not allowed to talk about all the interesting stuff.
Right.
Just everything else on the periphery, and it's so frustrating. So you have they can't really be classed as journalists, because you can't be a journalist and have no-go areas. And all of these guys have massive no-go areas. So they're kind of being disingenuous to their audience. And in a way, they really need to recuse themselves from, if they're just doing fishing and tourism, cultural stuff, anti-woke stuff, fine. And there's plenty of guys I know that are vets that don't necessarily cover their operational subject expert areas of subject whatnot. And that's fine. But don't inject yourself into things that you actually have a hand in. And you're completely gaslighting your audience. Gaslighting meaning putting a gaslight out so everyone's looking over there when they should be looking at the thing that's important. That's gaslighting. And I just see so much of that. Let's round this one out. I'm going to take a break with the network in a moment, but I'll hand it back to you, Hesher. No more yellow cards. Let's see if we can make it to the end of the match.
All right. Well, there's only 2 minutes left, so that couldn't be more than 20 acronyms. We'll see how it goes.
LinkedIn. So that was the first thing I did. I went to his LinkedIn page. First thing I noticed was all of his bona fides were in place. He has all the UAS training from USASOC and everything else. And so I said, okay, at least the guy knows what he's talking about with drones. That was a very rough dig into the guy. But my issue was I couldn't validate or verify any of this information. And I told him that. And how I responded to him was in a subsequent email. I said, this is obviously a very big deal, but I don't have anything to verify this information with. Talking about gravitic propulsion systems without evidence just makes me another UFO talking head. Like, I'm not going to go on my social media page and start talking about UFOs and anti-gravity systems.
Hold on. Time out. But that's exactly what you're freaking doing.
Yeah. You just did it.
Honestly, you can't make this up. This is like, if this was a comedy sketch, this is like Monty Python. This would be a great basis for a comedy sketch. The dialogue's already been written. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
And he said, can I get on Fox News Contact on Signal as well as Sean's show? Hegseth would be good too. That was his last message to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
The thing is, what is a gravitic propulsion system?
To be honest with you, it is a fancy term you're going to find in science fiction. You won't find it in any, as far as I know, you won't find this in any kind of official manual or scientific research. This is all science fiction. So, but what struck me is his use. What strikes me now, not then, but what strikes me now is his use of a very specific term that nobody else call it. If you asked me, I would say an anti-gravity propulsion system. That's how I would describe it, because I don't know this stuff. He said gravitic propulsion system.
We looked that up last night too, and all we could find was same thing, science fiction type stuff. But no matter where you're watching.
All right.
Wow.
They didn't even find Ashton Forbes. He talks about this stuff all the time. The guy who thinks the Malaysian flight thing.
He's weighed in on. He's endorsed this interview.
Of course he would, because that's. But he knows what that means. Yeah.
Gravitic propulsion systems. So they're saying, "Hey man, I'm not going to respond to this. This is a UFO stuff, but I'm doing it now on the Shawn Ryan show." Honestly, it's almost funny. I mean, at some point. So here's Mr. Shumat's follow up here. Sam Shumat. So he released this on Twitter just now, and basically he's saying that he's changed the story, Hesher. So this was last night. I think he's posted this 10 hours ago or so. Clint Russell's been doing a pretty good job following some of the talking points on this. Liberty Lock Pod. I think Clint is one of the better podcasters on this space. But so I tweeted here. I said the intel guy from the Shawn Ryan show. Disinfo debacle is now pushing out a new plot in the Vegas Tesla conspiracy. Eventually, they may get it right if they just keep adjusting the narrative. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So I've got that clip with us, and we'll play a couple minutes. So this is a revision of the narrative now. He's got a new story, and this is Sam Shumat. And basically, it's as we suspected it was from the beginning. Here, look at this.
So after I did the interview, a lot of people, nobody knew that I had the manifesto. I had to be very quiet for a day. So people were messaging me and they're like, have you heard of this guy? Have you seen this? Blah, blah, blah. And they didn't know I wasn't posting on it. People expect me to post on these relevant incidents like this, because just like I had posted on the New Orleans guy. So I was like being very quiet because Shawn was like, dude, you haven't told anybody, any other media you have this, right? I was like, no, nobody. I wasn't going to put it out on my own social media because people would be like, dude, you made this up. I knew I couldn't handle this information on my own. So anyways, after I did the show and it blew up and people were like, holy crap, they knew who I was. And people on my Instagram page started telling me things. So I had a lot of people reaching out, telling me what they had talked to, but with their Green Beret buddies. One person reached out and told me they had a very close connection to members of the family, which I won't go into. But what I've learned since then, and I'm going to say allegedly because I don't have proof of this, but I've had 3 people tell me this. Allegedly, Matt Livelsberger changed his meds several days prior to this incident. I don't know what several days means, but what I was told by several people who I value their input and were close to the situation told me that he was on antipsychotic medication. He had changed his medications, and they said that basically something crazy happened and he became suicidal. So people ask me, is he sane? Was he whatever? Well, I've gotten 2 stories on this, and I want people to hear me very carefully on this because I am saying 2 different things at the same time. What I have heard from family members, and this is what I put out. I think I put this out on the Shawn Ryan podcast because I heard this from, I saw this on social media. I have not personally talked to any family members. Let me make that clear. I saw on social media that members of his family had said that this was not normal for him. He was very normal. He was very sane mind. His teammates were shocked. Everybody was shocked because he was not a crazy dude, whatever else. And that's what I knew. And then after the podcast, I found out that it was literally, he changed his medication within days of this event and something shifted. So if his family had not seen that within the days of this, he could have been acting very bizarre, very strange. And the manifesto that he wrote, along with these letters and everything else, the guy was clearly, and I will stick to this. His desire was to send a message. It wasn't to do a mass casualty event. It wasn't to screw anybody over. It was to make this message as prominent as possible. And I still believe that. He was not trying to blow up that tower, in my opinion. He was not trying to blow up the tower. He was not trying to kill a bunch of people. The dude, and I say this respectfully to his teammates. I say this respectfully to his family. The dude had a screw loose, okay? I'm not going to get into the labeling of him. I don't know what his situation was, but I believe that he had a psychotic break. Whatever he was.
Okay, so he even said, I'm telling you 2 different things at the same time. How do you know he even was on psychotic meds? We just have to take Sam Schumet's word for it, right? So again, take your word for it. So plot twist, plot change, take my word for it. So this is trust me, bro, journalism. What you do if you're a journalist, you publish an article. You put the receipts in the article and you link to the source. If you have a document, you put a scan in a PDF and you let the people validate where the claim came from. If it's a member of the family that's an eyewitness and giving a piece of evidence, you quote them, then they have to own it at that point. And the difference between saying this as gossip on a podcast or a live stream or something like that is when you publish it, it becomes real and you have to defend it. That's the difference between journalism that's just stream of consciousness type of consumable media and actual journalism. So look at what the Gray Zone does, for instance. They're usually coming with receipts. They'll publish documents. They've got testimonies, real quotes, plus analysis. That's what we try to do at 21st Century Wire as well, and a number of other really respectable independent media outlets do that. That puts meat on the bones of a story. Then you go onto the podcast, and then you talk about what you've published. Okay, so so when Elon says we are the media, yay, we're the media. No, we're not the media. The media on X it's a train wreck. Okay, it's an absolute circus. And the people who have the biggest accounts are putting out unverified stuff. Half of it's manipulated or outright fake news. And they're getting paid thousands of dollars a month through X monetization by producing that viral news. And that's the problem. That's not real journalism. So that's my critique there. So Hesher, apparently he's got a screw loose, this special forces veteran who blew himself up with fireworks in his Tesla, trying to make a statement. He was trying to send a message. So like, I'm scratching my head, guys. What's the message? What's the message?
What is it? I mean, that's the billion-dollar question at this point. I mean, what did you achieve by this? You know, and then there's the whole like confusion about how his life ended too. We're told that he shot himself with a Desert Eagle. And we talked about this a little bit last night. If you want to put that on the screen right there, I've got a shot of what a Desert Eagle looks like. It's a massive pistol. And it comes in you know, multiple calibers, but I think that it comes in 357 Magnum, 44 Magnum, but the one that most people are interested in is the 50 caliber Action Express round, which is not a very common thing for someone to commit suicide with. This is the type of weapon that if you were to, you know, if one was to put it to one's own head and squeeze that trigger, you're, like Ruckus pointed out last night, it's one of the few guns that is probably going to make it so that you can't even have dental identification done on that body. And that is just a little sus in and of itself, I think. And
we got lucky, Hesher. The dude's ID survived everything, so we know it was him.
Right. Yeah. He's got a 9/11 style ID. Just a little bit burned on the edges. It's all good. And kills himself somehow before lighting off the fireworks display inside of the Cybertruck, which also doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's possible that somebody would get off their meds and rent a Cybertruck and go to Trump Tower, even if they're a Trump supporter, and try to send a message that nobody will understand and then kill themselves horribly in a head exploding sort of way, somehow before lighting off their firework petards and all this stuff. I mean, just laying out that little snippet of timeline, like, I'm sorry, I have a really hard time with that. Like, okay, someone changed their meds and this happened, maybe, but I'm not going to believe it from this media and from these law enforcement officers and these intel agencies and these you know, podcaster soft influencer guys.
Yeah. So the gun melted and beyond recognition. Obviously, can't pull any prints off it, but the passport or the military ID survived the incineration. So that's helpful, right? Shades of 9/11, and just burnt a little bit on the edge, you know, almost as if it's the standby props department at the production company. I used to work in standby props. I did a couple of big films, and that's the sort of stuff we do, you know, like make documents look old, burn it, but not too much, so it's legible on camera. Like when I was working in the film industry, that's the sort of stuff they do. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, like a form
and
of.
He wanted to send a message. We still don't know what the message really was. Was it because I thought I had heard that this email that's being passed around with these two, that there might have been two separate things. At first, there was like a fake manifesto that people were talking about, and then now the Shawn Ryan thing is the acceptable one, apparently. But what is the message that they're trying to make here with this bizarre suicide with fireworks? I mean, unless the guy, I mean, it is 2025 now, guys. Maybe he was like, well, okay, I'm going to kill myself, but lots of people have done this, and it just goes away in the news. How can I make this the most spectacular, eyeballs on me? How do I get my message out? Maybe he asked ChatGPT, what's the best way for me to go out with a bang? And maybe ChatGPT or Grok said, you know, well, it is New Year's, and maybe they're the reason they threw in the fireworks. I have no idea.
What's the biggest takeaway in the public domain in terms of Las Vegas Tesla? What's the biggest takeaway from it? What's the biggest conclusion from it? The biggest
Teslas
thing,
are pretty tough.
that's it. Ruckus, you've done it. That's exactly the biggest, at the moment, that is the biggest conclusion that's in the public consciousness, is that Teslas are impervious to car bomb explosions, right? And that Teslas are totally safe, and the cyber trucks are the bomb. No pun intended. That's the biggest takeaway. So I'm just saying that's a fact. That's
another great bonus for Elon was he was able to come out and say, oh, anyone out there who's pointing out, oh, these things can drive themselves, or they can be hacked, they can be driven remotely, anything. Like, a lot of people were pointing that out, us included. But Elon came out right away within 24 hours and said, oh, I looked at the data on that, and that vehicle did not drive itself there. Okay, we'll just take your word for it, Elon. And I guess that means in perpetuity, anytime something happens with a Tesla, and people start saying, well, maybe the auto drive was on, or maybe somebody was remote controlling it, you're going to have Elon post on X and say, nah, I checked the server logs, guys. You got to let that little theory go. It's like, is this going to be a trend? Is this the beginning of a trend?
Yeah. So two important points there. Also, dash cam, are there any internal cams in the Cybertruck? Where's that data? Does that data get uploaded to a cloud, central server? Who has access to that? Of course, now the government has an issue with self-driving cars. Is that self-driving cars that can be hacked or programmed can be used as UAV or drone car bombs, basically the equivalent of. And so that's a security issue for all of so the new technology brings in a new security issue. And government
deal with the VBIDs.
With VBIDs, yeah, the government has to be involved to prevent VBIDs from happening. So to be able to shut that down. So this is also a discussion that came in on the back end of San Bernardino in 2015. And it was the big national debate with Tim Cook panicking. Whoa, the government wants backdoor access into the iPhone, iOS, because we need to look in these terrorists' phones, and we need to do it now. And would give us the encryption keys, says the government. That was the national discussion on the back end of San Bernardino. And guess where the solution came from? Israeli intelligence stepped forward and said, we'll do it. Don't worry. We can handle that for you. So you don't have to get your hands dirty with your constitution. Americans, Israelis will take care of it. So that's interesting. I wonder if we'll have something similar coming up here in the tech discussion. I'm telling you that we look at all of these things. For all of these events, you study the event, you study the reaction, you study the aftermath, and then you look for, and this is the important point, what policies are going to be implemented or changed as a result of said event, said spectacle, said high-profile mass shooting, domestic terror event, ISIS-inspired attack. So that's the really important question. That's what you should all, to our audience, that's what you should all be concerned with. That is the number one concern of you as the audience with any of these events, is not to get too obsessed with the gory details, although they're interesting and you want to find out the truth. What policies or legislation are being pushed on the back end of the event, or what new things are going to be implemented as a result of the event event. So as journalists or independent analysts or whatever, that's what I'm interested in. That's what my colleagues here on the show, Hesher and Ruckus, are also interested in. We're looking at the whole spectrum. And we're actually interested in the end product more than anything, because that's what's going to affect you wherever you're sitting. So I'll give you another example. The Detroit underwear bomber. Okay. Now, if that happened today in 2024, the Q crowd, the Patriot podcaster crowd, they're going to be focused on the fact that the underwear bomber, the Detroit underwear bomber, was a Muslim. He was a Muslim, and he had a bomb rigged up to his underwear. It didn't go off. It's kind of a difficult one. And that's what they would be obsessed with. But when that happened, I think it was 2010 or something like that. I can't remember the year, sometime around there. And when that happened, We weren't interested in that. No. We were interested in what was going to come in terms of security requirements at airports because of the underwear bomber. And the underwear bomber was used to introduce the full body scanner in American airports with the TSA, DHS, federal government. And guess which company had the contract for the full body scanner? The company run by none other than DHS head Michael Chertoff. Great payday. It's great business if you can get it, folks. And it was funny because the underwear bomber, I forgot his name. You think he was Nigerian, Muslim. Father was a banker. He boarded the aircraft in Amsterdam, if I'm not mistaken. Details are hazy, but I think he boarded the aircraft in Amsterdam, and he boarded without a passport. Do you know anybody that's boarded an international flight without a passport? No, and he had a handler with him. We don't know the name of the handler, but that's what eyewitnesses said. So is that a shady event? Yep, it's pretty shady. But what came on the back end of that is what's important. So this is how we're trying to get our listeners and our audience for years to educate them to look at what are the implications of said event. Where do they want to herd you? What corner do they want to herd you in? So just quickly we'll go back to New Orleans, but just to round out Vegas, this came out. Daniel Davis, who is a phenomenal analyst and a podcaster, Daniel Davis, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, Deep Dive is his podcast. He put this out, I think, before anybody, or one of the first. This was another view of the Cybertruck, and he's saying driver sitting upright, so not slouched over from suicide, right? From the firearm, so couldn't have killed himself and then set the bomb off. I mean, that's a ridiculous scenario in itself, right, Hesher? I mean, so it's like,
yeah, a little bit of a chicken and egg process there, right? Like you're gonna kill yourself and then set off a bomb. How does that work? And again, that weapon, especially if it was 50, I don't think that the remains would be sitting upright before the explosion happened.
So what have we got here? This is back to New Orleans, Hesher, right?
Yeah, this particular one is just meme levels showing that the connections there between Ryan Ruth as well as the Bourbon Street guy and Matt. So there's all three of their pictures there, and all Fort Bragg related. Isn't that interesting?
And two of those are Ukraine related. I don't know about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar from New Orleans, but Ruth and Matthew, they're connected to Ukraine. Both spent time in Ukraine doing, illegal off the books activities, mercenary activities in Ukraine. Ruth was a recruiter, and he was raising money. He was kind of doing PR for the Pentagon or the CIA or something. So he visited and stayed overnight at Fort Bragg like 100 times or something crazy, as they said here. And that's not suspicious, is it, Hesher?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, here's just a couple more things too. I have the full LVMPD full, presser. I don't know if we want to watch that or not, but basically someone set up some of the takeaways from this.
Hold that till after the break.
Okay.
Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, great discussion so far. We're talking about New Orleans and also the Las Vegas Tesla strange event. So both these happen on the 1st of January. I'm here with Bryan McClain, aka Hesher, and also Adam Ruckus Clark, both on the Alternate Current Radio. Hesher is the host of the Boiler Room at ACR, and also Ruckus, the Daily Ruckus, is his podcast. Fantastic programs, both of them. So we're unpacking some of the difficult details of these crazy events. What we're going to do right now is take a break with Alternate Current Radio. And when we come back, we're going to get into some of those details because now we're organized. We've sort of set the scene for you guys. And what comes next is let's just do some serious unpacking of this. And by the end of this discussion, we want to make sure that you've got a good grip on what's been going on. So I am your host, Patrick Henningsen. This is the Sunday Wire. Enjoy the music of our friend Joseph Arthur. We'll be back in just a few.
Gratitude, the antidote. The world is built on fear. The evil world we live in wants our soul to disappear. But gratitude, salvation, and never any light that transcends all the darkness trying to hold us to the night. Thoughts say what is missing, thank you says what's here. Thoughts keep us unconscious, thank you makes it clear. Back into the moment, the vast eternal now, where God is always with us and holy like a cow, like a sunrise or a child or a garden full of roses. The mind misses the magic and considers all the poses. Why our thoughts against those principalities are there, whispering indifference on foundations of despair. So thank you is my mantra, mantra. Na 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 na. Thank you is my mantra, mantra. Who set up this funhouse, this journey for our soul, where most never make it and lose all their control? How do we get back any sovereignty from the lies of demons that we pretend to be? Thank you is a pass to a place outside of hell. Gratitude and presence will lift us where we fell, but we have to make a practice to come back into now, in the garden of our gratitude, and push that ancient plow. I don't know the reason we are in a holy war, how we ever come back to who we were before. Did it start in Eden with an apple and a snake? Since then, have we been falling with this battle as our fate? So thank you is my mantra, mantra. Na 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 na. Thank you is my mantra, mantra. The world will light us, and so will our minds, so will our minds. Whatever is the reason, this is where we are. The light and the darkness are aiming for our heart. The light wants us present in the clutch of gratitude. The darkness wants us scattered with an evil attitude. And we look at the thinking that justifies the course. We see it's thought itself that brings on the divorce. From the Holy Spirit, from revelations gloom, from the love of God to the darkness of the tomb. Voices of all demons we identify as us, and then we follow lies, the wrong voices that we trust. Take us to destruction, take us to despair, when the gift that God himself has always just been here. So thank you is my mantra, mantra. Na 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 na. Thank you is my mantra, mantra. Thank you is my mantra, mantra. Na 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 na. Thank you is my mantra, mantra. My mantra, mantra.
For in the final analysis, we all inhabit this small planet, and we are all mortal.
Lately I've been watching the world gone mad. Brothers and sisters full to take a stand, to hate their fellow man and other man. Divide and conquer is the acronym plan. Distract the people, control the story. Don't believe system, can't you see? We gotta stay in power, no matter what. Playing with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gather your trust, pushing us to turn to dust. We've captured rights, feudals like time will turn to dust. To dust. Industrialized brutality, commercialized cruelty, people as commodity, cheer on worn atrocity, no accountability, perpetual impunity, always have an enemy, the hell of all humanity. Stay in power, no matter what, playing with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gather your trust, pushing us to turn to dust. Stay in power, cash in the stock, playing with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and join the cause, pushing us to turn to dust. An empire of lies, history rhymes will turn to dust. Digital inmates, scored on every move, nowhere to hide, nothing to hold on to. Turn to dust, as we turn to dust, as we turn to dust.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. We're streaming out live on the Alternate Current Radio Network and also at 21stcenturywire.com. Thank you so much for joining us on this live broadcast, special live broadcast here, episode 530 of this weekly omnibus news analysis radio program. That means we've been doing the show for over a decade, which is pretty incredible considering humble beginnings at the Alternate Current Radio Network so long ago. Still trucking, still covering some of the biggest stories, both domestically and internationally. If in the United States, we do a fair bit of domestic, especially around election time. And certainly this month is no exception. I am joined by my cohort in this discussion. We'll bring on to the stage once again, Hesher, Bryan McClain, aka Hesher, host of the Boiler Room on ACR and former TNT Radio State of the Nation. Adam Ruckus Clark, as well, the Daily Ruckus, great program on ACR. I'll throw up your show graphics, both of you guys. Here's the Boiler Room, ladies and gentlemen. Hesher will give a shout out to that. And Hesher, when can people tune into the Boiler Room live? How often do you broadcast? Where can they find it?
We are weekly, typically on Thursday nights at alternatecurrentradio.com. And of course, going out via video to our Rumble channel, our Rockfin channel, sometimes our YouTube channel. Been a little bit more active on YouTube lately. And yeah, you can find us there every Thursday night, usually start around 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This week, we were going to do one yesterday. Well, actually, Thursday's Boiler Room, we pushed off because it was Spore's birthday. Happy birthday, Spore. And we were going to do one last night, but we spent so much time on this in the Twitter space, the X space, we decided to push it off. So our next Boiler Room will probably be tonight. So you're going to want to keep an eye on our Twitter accounts, our X accounts, our YouTube, our Rumble, all that good stuff. You can find Boiler Room on X at Hesher Media. You can see that down there on the screen. That's my handle on Twitter. And I'll let Adam speak for the Daily Ruckus. Very similar. You can find it at alternatecurrentradio.com.
Yeah, Ruckus, tell us about the Daily Ruckus. What have you got going? Last episode, new episodes?
Yeah, the Daily Ruckus, don't let the name fool you. Unfortunately, it's not quite daily, but I get them out when I can. Usually on average every 3 days, but that sometimes means I got one every day, and then I got a few days where there's nothing. So luckily you can find me doing things like this on other programs at ACR, like Sunday Wire and Boiler Room. Of course, I'm on whenever we do it. I'm always there, with one exception. The one exception I was not on Boiler Room. We had our YouTube channel temporarily deleted, so I make sure to be there every time, just in case. But yeah, so just, if you just stay tuned to Alternate Current Radio, or if you find the Daily Ruckus through one of your favorite podcasting platforms, you know how to subscribe to get notifications turned on, or to have an RSS feed, so you can get notifications when my newest show is available. But my new thing has been X. Lots of people find me there, so just follow my X account. That's AC_wordslinger, and that's where you will find postings of my show. And then, of course, always go to alternatecurrentradio.com. I have a whole show page, all the most recent episodes right there. So fun and easy. And since I'm doing Ruckus Vision, that's where you get to watch the videos. If you don't want to go log into, like, say, Rumble, you can just watch the video embed right there at alternatecurrentradio.com. Makes it fun and easy. I've been doing a 12 days of Ruckus, a holiday themed series currently, all around, based around the 12 days of Ruckus. So I've just been having fun testing my creativity and getting clever with having to do each separate day. So, like, instead of a partridge in a pear tree, it was a bunch of drones in New Jersey. My latest one was 7 sharks a swimming, stuff like that. My next episode, which would be available either tonight or tomorrow, I'm guessing tomorrow because we're doing Boiler Room, will be 8 fakes of faking. That's what I'm doing for the next episode. So you get the idea.
7 sharks a swimming, 9 Teslas on fire. So I wasn't going to announce this, but obviously it's a big announcement. Pretty soon, there's a big podcaster who's coming to America under duress, probably, and ACR is in talks of signing new talent. And it's going to be a huge show. I know you didn't want to leak this out, Hesher and Ruckus, but we're going to do it anyway. We're currently in talks with his people right now, and we really hope that we can bring this promising talent into our podcasting stable here. And the name of his show is going to be I'm Ukrainian. So I'm excited about this. I don't know about you, Hesher, but
yeah,
Zelensky.
The Vlado cast. That's going to be great.
Vlado Vision. Vlado Vision. I think I'd like to see him in your little Ruckus Vision TV. Ruckus, like kind of a Max Headroom.
He'd be too tiny. The guy's too short, unfortunately.
Apparently, so Lex Friedman, who is a strange podcaster, I don't know how he is elevated to the level he's at, because it's like watching paint dry. But anyway, he's interviewed Zelensky, and he just tweeted it. I'm here with Zelensky, and they had a picture of both of them, and they're actually the same height. So I thought Lex Friedman was a lot taller, but apparently he's about 5'4". So there you go, which is interesting. So he's a big fan of Zelensky, obviously. So that's why he's done the podcast. I can't imagine that's going to be objective journalism. There's going to be no tough questions being lobbed towards little Volo there. So that's interesting. Anyway, probably get a lot of views. That's great. He turned down Tucker.
Well, he's got the radio voice. I'll give Vlad that.
Oh, Vladimir. Yeah. Well, not Lex. Vladimir. I'm not sure. Yeah, Vladimir's definitely got the gravelly. He had a high-pitched camp voice when he was doing comedy, and even when he was running for president. And then when the war started, it went from high-pitched Russian accent to low-pitched, gravelly Ukrainian accent. So he's. So
he thinks he's Batman, basically.
He's definitely embraced the part, and this is what happens when you go into character. Who was that? Ben Stiller. Simple Jack. You got to be careful. If you go too deep into the character, then you can't get out, and that is dangerous. So I think that's what happens to Zelensky. He can't get out, basically. They haven't let the guy change outfits in 3 years. I mean, his British handlers, his American handlers won't let him wear normal civvy clothes. It would be nice to see him in a tie again, quite frankly.
Olive drab. It's going to olive drab the rest of his life.
Like, yeah, the Benetton green t-shirt. It's yeah, anyway. Okay, so Hesher, you wanted to share some details. And by the way, we're also going to we're going to wrap up this New Orleans and Las Vegas conversation. After that, a lot of people have sent me DMs saying, "Are you going to talk about Elon Musk and his kind of meltdown on Twitter?" In the last 24 to 48 hours, Elon Musk keeps doubling down on some seriously bad bets. He's calling first it was free Tommy Robinson. Then he's like, we need to dissolve British Parliament. He's calling on Britain to dissolve their parliament. It's not exactly how the system works, but anyway. And now he is basically calling for the ouster of Nigel Farage from the Reform Party in the UK because Farage isn't helping Tommy Robinson. Well, as it turns out, Elon's been pushing fake news about Tommy Robinson. We'll explain that and show you the facts of Tommy's case in a moment. But Elon's all about truth. He said that's his religion. He said, my religion is the truth, the relentless pursuit of the truth. Unfortunately, that doesn't extend to right-wing commentary and the Tommy Robinson canard. I think is the best way to describe it. But anyway, weird meltdown from Elon Musk. We'll talk about that in a moment. But where are we at right now? We're going to go back here. We'll bring up on screen. Hesher's shared this with us. Tell us what we're looking at.
So just a couple more things on this. And then I'd also like to highlight, if we could go back 3 weeks in time before all these events, I'd like to highlight just a short piece from Sarah Adams on that same podcast with Shawn Ryan there, because that is another interesting piece of the puzzle. But MJ Truth Ultra posts on X, update, Cybertruck Trump Hotel Vegas bomber, full presser is available. It's out there on YouTube if you want to see it, but a lot of weird stuff. So MJ Truth Ultra has kind of pulled out some anomalies here. And this is what I'm talking about when I find it heartening that people are taking an analytical look at this and using the same tenets that we talked about last night on X and that we're talking about here today to analyze these things as a way to sort of bolster yourself from predatory mass media. But anyway, some bullet points. A partially burnt military ID and passport was found, IDing the suspect as Matthew Livelsberger, which we know. Some of these things we've covered. The body wasn't able to be removed for a long time because he was burnt beyond recognition. Several tattoos were partially identified on his stomach and arm, which makes them believe it's him. A Desert Eagle 50 caliber semi-automatic pistol, there you go, so it was 50 cal, was found, as well as an SLR model Bravo 30 firearm. I'm not familiar with that one. An iPhone, a smartwatch, and credit cards were also found. So
credit cards,
yeah,
made of plastic, right? They're made of plastic, right?
Yeah.
Well, if the ID survived, certainly, of course, the credit cards have to survive, and if they survive, they have to be legible. They can't survive unless you can actually read the name of the holder, right?
Yeah.
Is that the rules of physics?
I would think so. Yeah, that sounds logical. And I would also assume that if the iPhone and the smartwatch were functional still, a lot of information could be gained about his communications, verifying some of these emails, his GPS positions, coming in and out of this location. A lot could be made if an honest investigation was going on. So we'll just leave that.
In context, can I point out that he had said in his letter that he believed he was being followed? If you believed you were being followed, would you carry so many tracking devices with you? I just want to point that out.
Yeah. Would you wear a Bluetooth tracker on your wrist if you thought you were a targeted individual? I mean,
well, that's interesting, Hesher. I mean, started to do a little diversion here, but the beginning of the Shawn Ryan podcast, I was talking about the tracking and all that, and those two guys, Sam Schumatt and Ryan, were talking about, oh my God, are my phones being tracked here? Who's tracking us? How did I forgot the internal FBI service of the military? How did they get a hold of this? Whatever, and then immediately Shawn Ryan uses that as a segue to say, and speaking of tracking, you got to get the unplugged phone here. This is like Eric Prince's. Is that Eric Prince's phone? From Blackwater?
Yeah, I think so.
It might be. You got to get the unplugged phone here. And maybe after he said, my phone's tracked. So Shawn Ryan's is saying thinks his phone's tracked, but he uses the unplugged phone. So it's not I mean, there's a terrible ad for this. He's basically saying he's paranoid about being tracked, even though he's using Eric Prince's unplugged phone. I mean, that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
So I think he kind of fucked up on the plug product placement there. But I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, it's just a little bit of comic relief there. Sorry. But I had to throw that in there. It was
it's a great point. Okay, he goes on to say another bullet point here. He sustained a gunshot wound to the head prior to the detonation of the vehicle, despite there being no reports of gunshots being heard just before. So again, no one.
How
in
do
the
they know
lobby-
it was before and not after? Maybe he blew himself up and then shot himself in the head.
Yeah,
Questions.
what's with the specific timeline there? How do they even know where the chicken and the egg are at this point? And a 50 caliber round, by the way, is a loud, very loud round. Ruckus and I were out yesterday at the range, and we shot a 450 Win Mag, and my goodness, that bullet's probably, I don't know, I couldn't tell you if it's bigger or not, but I'm guessing it's going to be a similar sound and concussion out of a 50 Deagle. And then, of course, there is he served in the military. Both subjects from the New Orleans attack and this man served at Fort Bragg. They also both served in Afghanistan. They also both used the same app to rent their vehicles, and I will add to that, from the same company. All right, both their vehicles were rented from the same company, and it's not one of the big name ones that you see. That at least it wasn't like Budget or Enterprise or one of those familiar ones to me.
Is it like a startup tech app for renting cars or something? Is that
good question?
Could it be an Israeli company by any chance? I'm just throwing that out there as a question, innocent question.
Yeah,
because they're really good at tech. So just throwing that out there.
It's a good question, and I'll follow up on it because I have the name of the company somewhere stashed in my notes and tabs here. He traveled over 800 miles in the Cybertruck to Las Vegas. He made a number of stops before he arrived at the Trump Hotel.
How often did he have to stop to charge the car?
Yeah.
What, every 150 miles or something? That there was a meme going around about that saying this is why he committed suicide. The amount of times he had to stop to charge the cyber. There's a terrible meme. There's very bad taste going around, but unfortunately these things circulate.
Seems to be the norm now, doesn't it? I mean, look at what happened to the United Health CEO murder. I mean, that turned into a giant meme culture thing, and there was we talked on last time we did the Boiler Room. We talked about the natural born killers effect, where Luigi started getting support and money and offers for relationships from fans, basically.
Yep. The Tom Jones effect. Women were sending their knickers in the post to Luigi Mangione. I mean, I know it's crazy, but that's totally the natural born killers. That's kind of like where fiction and reality kind of overlap, and you get that weird sort of gray area reality there, where reality and media and Hollywood and people's imaginations. Sean Helton did a great article on natural born killers. We talked about that.
Oh yeah.
That's up at 21stcenturywire.com. Sean did a couple of the Fight Club one. Actually, that comes into play with some of this as well. Some of these stories, but anyway, I digress. Go ahead, Hesher.
Yeah, the Fight Club one was like Sean's magnum opus when it comes to film analysis. That one is absolutely awesome. Highly recommend.
Yep.
And shout out and Happy New Year to Sean. Hope you're well. Yeah, that's about it. They also note that the vehicle exploded within 17 seconds of arrival. So you arrive, and within 17 seconds you commit suicide, and then after you commit suicide, you set off a 4th of July, New Year's Eve style.
Why is he obsessed with the number 17 at the bottom in that post? Why does he say it just had to be 17? I don't get it.
Yeah, I was going to admit that because I don't know what the esoteric reference is there, but
there is none. Was there multiple? Was there other references to other 17s?
Not that I've seen.
Yeah, I missed something. Okay, that's very strange. It makes no sense to me. And I look at the numbers. There's nothing to this 17 thing unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, so our numerologists out there, let us know in one of the chats if you can explain what MJ Truth is talking about there. And then if you're interested, I'm not going to play it, but if one is interested, the entire C-SPAN production of that, who was that? The LVMPD statement on it is available on that same tweet, so you can find it over there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Hesher, I dropped you a couple of links as well to bring up as well if you want to, if you don't have any other visuals, if you want to share those as well. There's 3 stories I want to point people to when we're talking about what we call the daily shooter, and this is why we're able to analyze these things so quickly and kind of figure out what's likely to happen, what's likely going on. And so one of the classic case studies for this is the Garland, Texas event, the Draw Mohammed cartoon contest. This was in May of 2015. And so we were following that real time on CNN, and we can kind of just gradually scroll down on this one. And you can kind of see they had a private security firm there, all special ops guys waiting for a possible terrorist attack because they staged this provocation after Charlie Hebdo, the Draw Mohammed cartoon contest in Garland, Texas. And the master of ceremonies was none other than Pam Geller. You'll probably see her beautiful face as we scroll down. And also Geert Wilders from the Netherlands, the race hustler. He was there. There they go. And so CNN were basically all over these guys, these special forces guys. So completely over the top security. They're expecting a terrorist attack. There they are. And Geert Wilders was flown in from the Netherlands as the sort of guest of honor, along with other celebrity right-wing types. And so we were watching this thing, and I'm like, this is a complete fake. Like this is a CNN production. And lo and behold, the terrorist attack that they hoped for actually happened on live TV. There's Pam Geller. It's connected to the Israeli lobby, runs some kind of think tank or whatever. Her husband, Robert Spencer, they're all over the place. I think it's Stop Islamicization of America. They've got another connected with Bridget Gabriel, Act for America, etc. So these sort of people there. So what happened here was it turned out, and we learned later, that the perpetrator who showed up magically on this live CNN broadcast drove up and was gunned down immediately by these guys or by the FBI. I'm not sure. So they set up this casus belli on CNN. This was in May 2015. And it turns out later we find out that Elton Simpson, the so-called terrorist, was an Islamic convert, Phoenix, Arizona, was radicalized by an FBI handler who was paid over $100,000. And what came out in court filings years later in a separate case was the FBI had a supervisor on site as the shooters or the terrorists arrived, and they were then wasted and gunned down. So this had all of, and CNN ran the media management for this event. It was a CNN production. So this is a perfect example of who knows who, the FBI are involved. It was a staged event. It was a provocation. They actually had their terrorists ready to go, drove them in for the event, shot them and killed them on site, covered by CNN. So it literally was one of the greatest media productions of a domestic terror event you could possibly find as an example. So we point people to the Garland, Texas story. We covered this. We went out on a limb early and said it was a staged hoax. And of course, we took a lot of flack for that. We did that the morning after. And it wasn't until years later that we were vindicated through the court filings on a separate case. And we covered that in a separate article. And so I'll actually try to link up these 3 Garland, Texas articles together. So that's one of them. And then the other one, which I think you'll find interesting, is San Bernardino live updates. And so we covered this live again as it broke at the time. We did this with many of these events, including coups, the Turkish coup. I think that was the same summer, 2015, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But this was like a live sort of coverage that we did. And then it was absolutely the most insane, scripted, just a total cluster, of an operation involving thousands of first responders, DHS, police. Turns out there was a multi-agency fusion drill on site that week. And the so-called perps, apparently they said this 5'2", if you scroll down, you'll probably see a picture of her eventually. Tafshin Malik, the Muslim wife of the other supposed terrorist, 5'2". We're meant to think she was Laura Croft, Rambo, carrying a massive machine gun plus backup pistols and rounds, clips. There's the husband there, Saeed Farouk, 28-year-old, mild-mannered, soft-spoken employee, female partner, Tafshin Malik, both gunned down dead, as you'd expect. And then CNN went and ransacked the apartment of the alleged perpetrators afterwards. And there's CAIR, C-A-I-R. They ran the sort of public relations with CNN and Fox on the back end of that. So there's a whole narrative attached to this. And as we pointed out here, this was used ultimately, the Council for American Islamic Relations. A lot of people suspect that this has been infiltrated by the intelligence services and is Muslim Brotherhood affiliated. And the Muslim Brotherhood had been penetrated by U.S. and British intelligence for many decades, and Israeli intelligence as well. So this event was used to trigger U.S. fight against ISIS. Oh, look at this. An informant paid $356,000 by the government, as well as immigration benefits because he was convicted felon, being allowed to stay to work as an informant. CAIR's Greater Los Angeles office issued a press release before the trial. So they're implanted in an FBI informant scandal, CAIR. So they're running PR for the San Bernardino event. So I mean, the whole thing is just dirty from top to bottom. Anyway, we point to this because it's so relevant to the New Orleans event, which is, again, same exact MO, quote, ISIS inspired and amazing. And they had like known Israeli operatives who are in the counterterrorism conversation, providing all the sort of color commentary for this after the fact on Breitbart and other media outlets. I mean, talk about shady. And this is, they made it work. They said he was inspired by Facebook posts. And so technically ISIS attacked America and San Bernardino, ergo trigger the authorization use of military force, boom, deployment to Syria and Iraq to fight ISIS. End of story, move along, and thousands of bombs later and a few cities leveled, the war on ISIS continues. There we go. That was the person who jumped the flat was Victor Blackwell, CNN reporter. He's since been moved on to another network, maybe News Nation. News Nation's like basically it's like a clearinghouse for ex-CNN employees. That's another story there. Anyway, we've got some of the video of this. They did the exact same thing, Hesher, after the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. Omar McKee.
So, Carrie, you're in that scrum, I guess.
Okay, so Andrew, I think we're going to wait a minute. You can see there's a crush of cameras here. There's people holding up their cell phones, taking snapshots.
The orgy of evidence that was allowed.
Here's just some mixed nuts with peanuts.
Immediately following.
Take a look at the calendar and see if anything's marked on the calendar. And I don't see anything. That's November, so let's go over here to December.
Very, very
just similar. See if anything of importance was marked on the calendar here.
This recent event.
And nothing there. And it's just a typical sort of calendar with.
I mean, can you imagine
what kind of computer equipment in a crime scene? Presumably the FBI has taken anything that they
thought. Given permission to come in and also to touch this stuff. So it's not as if I'm touching things that I shouldn't be touching. So
you might check to see if anything is written on the back of these pictures. Any dates?
Just finger effing everything.
Looks like it may have been some sort of birthday party.
Let's make sure we don't.
Okay, here's the first picture we're seeing of a child.
See the children. Let's not show the child.
Here, there's
Carrie.
a shot of an open Quran also.
And I'm sorry, Andrea, this is sort of unfolding live as we're doing it, so I'm not sure what the next picture is going to be until I pull them open. All right, so we've got quite a number of pictures of children here. Again, it's
just amazing stuff. Rooting through
journalism, Hesher. I mean, this is top level stuff.
Yeah,
Pulitzer Prize.
I think we should.
We're going to step away from the pictures for a moment. Why don't we go to the?
Let's see in the other side of the next room.
That's an MSNBC special. Right
okay,
there.
so we have an LG monitor.
Live too. They filmed it and shot it live.
We have a check here from Chase to Syed Farouk for $7.98. Over here is one of these sort of all-in-one
Going through his
all-in-one
lockbox,
printers and
cabinet.
scanners here. We have to step back a little bit, Bill, because there's a crowd that wants to step in as you come out from here and spread
I like
out
how you
on
use the word
the
ransacking
spread out
in the article there.
appears to
Full story of the
be
media
credit cards and
ransacking the
IDs.
suspect's
So
home.
here's
That
one
is
of the ones. Here's an ID. All right, here we
the
go. So
descriptor.
California
Look,
ID.
there's
Let
an
me just look
ID.
at it first. Okay.
Look at that. There's her ID.
Raifa Sultana
Not blurred
Farouk.
out or anything.
We have a
Okay,
revenue support clerk business.
So that was San Bernardino. That was December of 2015. And I just dropped you a link, Hesher. If you grab this, this is the New York Post yoga bunny who is allowed access to the New Orleans terrorist. If you bring that up, and I think you can play that video in there, that's a pretty amazing, absolutely amazing one. But again, almost identical.
Yep.
You can see that it's been clearly destroyed, the door at least, from the FBI raid yesterday. But if we walk through the home, we see some signs of what he was up to. He had this work area here, lots of different chemicals splayed around, and different electronics. This is, again, a work setup. Left receipts, just very unkempt in here. If we go over here, actually, you can see the Department of Justice documents here, the search warrant, and the property that they recorded here, which seems to be a lot of chemicals. Again, just left in disarray. There's a bedroom back here, and his, what appears to be his collection of religious materials, his Qurans, an open Quran with a passage there, as well as even the Bible here, but mostly books on Islam, and his prayer rug just to the left of me here. And if we go back, there's another bedroom here. You can see he left all these belongings, contact lenses, personal belongings, bathroom. This seems to be some sort of workspace, again, with other chemicals here. The light's still on, some kind of station set up here. We're not really sure what that was for. In, you know, what we can assume was also a bedroom. You can see clothes left here, and just a sign.
Oh, look at that, a Palestinian kafia scarf.
Yeah. Those last few moments when
just
neighbors
hanging there
said
nicely.
He left just before the New Year's holiday, saying he was done with his lease. It was up, and he was on his way to New Orleans, where he would live there. Didn't take any furniture because he said his new home would be furnished. That's all we know so far.
Wow, that's Pulitzer Prize winning journalism right there from Jenny Taylor, who I believe is American Israeli or something like this. She's done stringer work for Fox, apparently News Nation, the New York Post here, Prager University. I think she's got some of that in her resume as well, and other sort of, you know, organizations and foundations linked to Israel. So that's interesting that she, of all people, in Houston, was allowed into a counterterrorism crime scene 24 hours after this big world-changing terrorist attack. And she's going, and of course, you talk to Muslims. I've never been to a Muslim's house where the Quran is left open or seen it. It's usually you're supposed to close it to respect the book. That's kind of, especially if you're pious. I'm just throwing that out there as a kind of cultural motif detail. So that's strange, and open to the martyrdom passage. So he left the flat, he left his lease, but he didn't take any of the stuff with him. That's totally credible and believable. So again, great journalism by the Washington Post stringer. I mean, come on, folks, seriously. But so that's, again, San Bernardino, identical MO right there. And yeah. Omar Mateen, Pulse nightclub, Orlando. I think that was in 2015 as well. This was the all-star year, right? Was his father not a CIA informant in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
He kind of was. Wasn't his father not the #2 guy they were pushing to be the next president of Afghanistan?
That sounds familiar.
Same guy. Was Omar Mateen not on IMDb as an actor?
He was indeed.
Yeah. So that's not sus, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not just a coincidence, I'm sure. That was June of 2016, June 12th, 2016. 29-year-old Omar Mateen.
Yeah, Pulse nightclub. Totally crazy event. Defied all logic. Never seen anything like it. And a lot of it's strange sort of people featured on mainstream media after that who were survivors and stuff like that. Kind of had an air of Disney World to it, to be quite honest. Not really credible at all. But I'm going to bring up on screen here. Now, this is interesting. So if this is correct, and I think it is, FBI seeking information about Bourbon Street attack. But Hesher, if you look at the perpetrator there from the CCTV images, so he's on site, and doesn't he look about? So there's that. Totally different character there, gray hair, about 30 pounds lighter in civvy clothes, and then we see this released, full camo gear, kind of overweight. We blurred out the body, obviously, there, but you can find the gory image on social media. But isn't that interesting? So is it the same person laying down in front of that truck that's in these photos? And did he do a costume switch somehow while he was driving the car and shooting out the window? I don't know. It just seems like it's just another question there. Anyway, this, if anybody can verify that, I'm assuming this is the original SBI poster, but again, I'm not going to. It was posted on a social media account that I follow, so I'm assuming this is from the FBI, but it might not be. Could have been. There's a lot of doctored JPEGs on social media, but anyway, I think it's authentic. We can probably do a search on the back end, you guys, if you Ruckus or anybody is able, looking for FBI seeking information, image search, Bourbon Street attack, see if there's anything on the FBI website. But apparently it's case closed. It's case closed because they already let the media into the flat. So if you had any ISIS accomplices, the DNA samples are going to be contaminated now because you've had film crews traipsing through. So I guess that's over. So it's not really a serious investigation, is it? So is this really the perpetrator? Kind of a legit question when you see some of the shenanigans going on here, especially with the media folks. So that's interesting. But the other one was Trouble in the Homeland. I don't know if you have that link. That was one of the 21 Wire links, Hesher, there. And this was the Chattanooga shooting. This also happened in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this, I think this shooting happened in 2015. That was that banner year of the Daily Shooter. And this was off of a U.S. military base as well. And let's take a look at that story. Trouble in the Homeland. I co-wrote this with Jay Dyer. Jay obviously is really well informed and steeped in these types of events. And his book, Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2, are kind of the seminal text on CIA, intelligence, cults, crossing paths with Hollywood. So that's interesting. But this was the psychodrama, Chattanooga in 2015. Has some similarities, kind of a lone wolf shooting. And if you scroll down, the interesting part is there's the perpetrator, immigrant family, I think second generation, not sure. But that was, I don't think his name will be that. Yeah, Muhammad Yusuf Abdulaziz. So this was a very strange event. And it featured a lot of weird anomalies. And it kind of played out again on CNN and the mainstream media. It's kind of a big media production while it was breaking and afterwards. But when you scroll down, here's the interesting part. We'll go down a little bit further and we'll see a graphic, like a flow chart, to do with who had access to the investigation. And what you see with these, if it comes under counterterrorism, in this case, because it came off of a military base, it was pretty much a closed loop in terms of the investigation. And that means that local law enforcement, sheriff's department, even the FBI are kind of shut out at that point. There's so many red flags on this story that don't make sense, that look like there was some other involvement there. Obviously, this was at the height of the ISIS crisis. And you have Site Intelligence Group. That's an Israeli connected outfit in the Beltway that basically, they launder and manage all the information. Bethesda, Maryland, Rita Katz, Site Intelligence there. But scroll down a little bit more and you'll see the investigation information chart. And it is quite extraordinary. I think it's coming up pretty soon, but there we go. So all the information for this was basically sealed into a very, very small compartment of the US military. And I don't even think the FBI could get into it. So it was it's what we called at the time a closed information system. And the FBI can do this as well when it becomes a federal counterterrorism case. And Oklahoma City was extremely interesting in this. I think Oklahoma City was mismanaged through the ATF and the FBI. They couldn't get the story straight. They couldn't manage all of the leaks, the sieve that was OKC. And I think over the years that agencies, the US government, the military in this case, have gotten in super control over everything immediately, and they control all information that comes in and out and what gets fed to the media. So this was like a perfectly kind of managed narrative here. And if we look at the work of Trevor Aronson, and this is where we're taking it, folks, and this is what you need to know. So if you want a really good takeaway, and by the way, you can find all these articles on 21st Century Wire. Just go to the Daily Shooter archive, the Daily Shooter archive, and you'll find all of these things. Now, why we say this and what's important is you look at the work of Trevor Aronson. And here's Trevor. This is a book that's required reading. It's called The Terror Factory. So inside the FBI's manufactured war on terror. So post 9/11, to the point where this book was published, 2014, 90% of all the high-profile terror busts in America featured FBI informants, handlers, dupes, and other useful idiots. So in other words, none of these high-profile terror busts would have happened without the FBI making them happen. And one of the most egregious examples of this was actually before all this, before 9/11, was the World Trade Center bombing in New York in 1993. Now, you'll hear US politicians get up and say this was an Al-Qaeda attack on American soil. You'll even hear people in the media repeat that trope. The World Trade Center bombing in 1993, this is 9 years before 9/11 or 8 years before 9/11, this was an FBI cell. It featured FBI informants. They put it together. They trained the driver. They gave them the money for the bombs. It was supposed to be inert, and it was supposed to have dummy explosives. And lo and behold, as if by magic, the bombs became live when the truck went into the basement of the World Trade Center and nearly took out a column of one of the World Trade Centers in 1993. And the narrative was that was a Islamic terror attack on U.S. soil. The reality, which came out later through audio tapes and New York Times, back when it was probably one of the last bits of journalism the New York Times ever did, was the coverage of this scandal. And this should be like in everybody's like history book as a lesson. And after 9/11, as Trevor Aronson here in the Terror Factory documents, the FBI spun up all of these high-profile terror events after 9/11. And so this is not a conspiracy theory, ladies and gentlemen. This is fact. The FBI were busy filling up files of various terror suspects, and if they didn't have them, they'd go and create them. They recruit people who had a screw loose in the local mosque. And the Americans aren't the only people who do this, by the way. The British have done it. The French do it. Belgium as well. You'll find this practice. Germany, So you have this weird practice, this overlap of intelligence services, law enforcement, national law enforcement, mosques, and some Muslim Brotherhood groups and very shady international organizations there. And who knows, possibly a foreign intelligence service in the case of America. I'm talking about Israel. Israel's been busted doing intelligence ops, spying on American soil multiple times, including by the FBI. So just understand that's like a thing. So when you look at these events and you look at who's the beneficiary of them at the end, what is the result of the war on terror but a huge U.S. deployment in the Middle East? Who does that benefit? Absolutely Israel. So if it was such a threat, why would you need to manufacture it? Why would you need to manufacture it? If there's such a Islamic terror threat, why would you have to go in and create it? And to Republicans, you guys know the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping that helped to swing the 2020 election against Trump in favor of Biden. You know that is an FBI op. That's come out as an FBI op, even though it's denied by MSNBC and left-wing media. The right wing knows that's an FBI op. So, but you suspend your animation in your mind when it comes to Islamic terror. Oh, it couldn't possibly be an FBI op. It's radical Islamic terror. It's ISIS inspired. And they're coming over the southern border. You know, our government wouldn't have anything to do with any of this terror, right? But it's okay if it fits a certain mold, but you switch off your brains when it has anything to do with Muslims, Islam, or the Middle East, or bin Laden, or whatever. So it's just a bit of cognitive dissonance. I don't know. You guys have any comment on that? And are you familiar with the work of Trevor Aronson?
Yeah, absolutely. Terror Factory is critical reading. And there's so many examples of this. You know, last night I brought up the Newburgh Sting. There you can watch the Newburgh Sting documentary on YouTube. It's the same thing. 4 guys from a mosque were convinced by FBI informants that they should do a bombing at a synagogue or something like that. I mean, it's a very well documented case. If you could put this one on the screen too, here's another great example. Okay. This is a classic from Last American Vagabond here. This was put out in 2018, in the beginning of 2018. Parents catch FBI in plot to force mentally ill son to be a right-wing terrorist. The parents of a severely mentally disabled man are speaking out on how the FBI groomed him as a right-wing terrorist, knowing he's a paranoid schizophrenic. So, you know, I'm not going to read the whole thing there, but this is yet another great example of how these things can happen. And look who they target. They target a mentally ill person that he would fit the profile great for, you know, this type of operation, the right-wing white nutbag, you know, so it's like, you know, again, you keep seeing these ginned up things that they're creating, and it's almost always against quote unquote right-wing Americans or Muslims.
Yeah, that's an Hatari militia in Michigan. That was part of the PatCon, Patriot conspiracy operation run by the federal government to kind of implant and radicalize Patriot militias. Oklahoma City, obviously, that goes under that banner as well. So yeah, I mean, there's just so many examples of this, but the main thing is they're preying on people that are vulnerable. And that's one of the big things that upsets a lot of people about this practice, is they're really taking advantage of people who wouldn't be in these situations to begin with. I mean, Chris Lee Cornell was a wrestler out of Ohio, and they set him up on a fake kind of, he was going to bomb Washington, and they gave him the money to go in the hardware store, and then all the feds were waiting outside the hardware store when he came out, and then busted him, and then did a press conference on it. And he was a really kind of messed up radical. And then, of course, who did they send in to do the prison interview of this screwed up guy? Of course, it was CNN. So CNN is part of the deep state's media management team. Very important to understand. And here's the film. I mean, we have a lot of these great films at 21st Century Wire. One of them is The Noble Lie. This was made in 2010. This is one of the greatest independent documentaries ever made. Full stop, period. They don't make films like this anymore. And this is about the Oklahoma City bombing. Timothy McVeigh, complete federal involvement, set up by the feds, is the biggest domestic terror attack in the U.S. history up to that point in time. And it was a complete dodgy, dirty operation during the Clinton administration. Bill Clinton, White House, directly implicated in the cover-up of this. Eyewitness testimonies in here. And I'm going to tell you, the people who made this film took a huge personal risk, and let's just say, their lives were negatively affected by it in the worst possible way. And also James Traficant, former congressman, he took a lot of flack, including he was thrown in prison for a lot of things, including exposing some of this. So just understand, when you see films like this, the price that the filmmakers and the investigators had to pay to bring this to the public. And this really just blows the lid. And James Corbett did an awesome short video. I'll see if I can find it on OKC. You guys, have any of you seen Noble Lie? Have any of you had a chance to? InfoWars. Yeah. I mean, back when Alex used to do documentaries and promote some of this great work, that's how I found out about it through Alex Jones. 12 years ago or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's another must watch. Hands down. If you haven't watched that, you should.
Yeah, a noble.
Also, as a side homework, if you can find some of those older Hour of the Time broadcasts from Bill Cooper during the year it was taking place, and see some real journalism happening on a radio program. So check that out.
I thought it'd be 1995.
Yep.
Mid 90s. Yeah, Bill Cooper, absolute legend. Amazing. So anyway, why we're showing this stuff, ladies and gentlemen, is just to show you that there is form and there is pedigree with these types of operations, and it goes way back, and some of it's very well documented. So when you see the news, when you see images like this, you need to sort of step back and realize that there is a chance that you may be being manipulated in real time on social media. And when you watch podcasts like this, you have to take a certain amount with a grain of salt and consider the source. There's a very wise person once told me, consider the source. Something I always have in my head. Consider the source. And that's for any information, any commentary, any claims. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We'll go back to, I don't know if we have any more. Any more stuff.
Ruckus did some back digging for us. What'd you find here, Ruckus? You're able to verify this
that is the featured image for the FBI's seeking information page. So it is from the FBI. That was legit.
So guys, I'm just going to have to say, looking at those photos of him on the CCTV camera, and then seeing the unredacted image here of a very heavy set man, probably about 30 or 40 pounds heavier, wearing full army camo. And then I'm looking at what you're showing me. They don't quite match up. So I got questions. Did he do a costume change? Did he put on 30 pounds in 12 hours? If this was shot before, when he was driving, is it the same guy? This guy doesn't look too athletic.
Patrick, the little blurry thing they put on you on TV adds 30 pounds, just so you know.
That one. Yeah. Well, the other image is graphic, obviously.
Yeah, it's pretty harsh.
We're not going to show that on air because it's quite disturbing.
The other one, Patrick, we haven't talked about this, but over here, there's the cooler. They say on the FBI seeking information thing, there's a thing about a cooler with IED placed near Bourbon Street and Orleans Streets. What's up with that? Where have we seen these before? J6, Boston, all these places. So this guy, I mean, what a multitasker. What an amazing multitasker. Did he stop the truck and get that out and leave it there? Did he leave the truck to place that there? What was the intended effect of that? Is it inert? Is it real? Did any cameras capture him dropping that off? I imagine there's cameras all up and down those streets on the businesses. Yep. Was he wearing a smartwatch? Do we have the GPS, walking route that he did to lay that down? There's so many like just forensic questions and investigative questions that one should have when looking at that. But it's ornamental. It's just like this. It's like we're looking at some sort of, FBI Christmas tree. And they're like, well, we should probably put an IED cooler on the top instead of an angel.
As you do. Yeah, why not? I mean, driving full speed down an alleyway, running over the people, out the window with, I guess, a semi-automatic weapon, or was apparently shooting people, hitting with, I don't know, a handgun. That's kind of difficult, going full speed, firing a handgun, hitting stationary targets. I always found that to be difficult when one engages in such crazy activity, but and then trying to basically drop a cooler with an IED at the same time. He's a real multitasker here. I mean, this guy is something else. I mean, really puts Rambo to shame, and Tom Cruise and anybody else. Some serious action talent here, Mr. Jabbar. So I don't know, not difficult to believe. And why? What's the motive? Means, motive, and opportunity. These are two things you need for crime. It's whatever any good investigator, a prosecutor is looking for. Don't really see the motivation.
Maybe the truck was gravitic. We don't know.
Gravitic. This is the word of the day. Gravitic. So, Mr. Matthew in the Cybertruck may have got the word gravitic from Ashton Forbes. So that's how the information flows, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a very efficient system. Anyway. There we are. I mean, we're talking in tongue in cheek here, but we're also dead serious. Some of this stuff is just unbelievable.
There was one thing that one of the panelists brought up last night that we haven't brought up on the show here, since you had the picture of the flag, the photo op with the flag. There was lots of people who looked at that and said that the flag's backwards. It's not even the real ISIS flag. Like, it's a total.
Well, this one's upside down.
Job.
Yeah,
okay.
This is upside down, so it's an upside down flag, unless you want to believe that ISIS was in distress. So he could have been sending a secret message that I'm in distress. I'm not really an ISIS member, but I'm being made to do this by the feds. Who knows? I mean, this photo itself is unconfirmed. It just appeared on Ian Miles Chong's Twitter feed, and no one can find it anywhere else. That's a bit sus. Does this look like it's photoshopped? It kind of does.
Why is it so grainy? I mean,
it feels very photoshopped, or maybe AI generated, or something. And there's a lot of AI generated images now being pushed out and being flagged as fakes. So this is highly sus, but that's okay. We need to trust it because, as Elon Musk says, you are the media. And if you're one of the half a dozen accounts that Elon boosts, like Ian Miles Chong, who gave us this ISIS image the day of the event. And that's all good. That's the media. That's the new media. You guys are as confident as I am.
Yeah. Notice the photographer has the hospital booties over his shoes, but the other people are just wearing their normal street shoes, and the strewn about caution tape there. I mean, that looks completely like a staged photo. And if I was to believe it was real, I would have to assume that it's a still shot from a security cam video. That's the only reason I could think why it would be so low quality. But why would security cam still shots be being sent to Ian Miles? I mean, Ian, where'd you get that? We'd love to hear the story behind this.
Well, this is the problem with You Are the Media on X, is that because these people never put any external links, they don't really say what the source is. They could put source Hindustan Times or something stupid like that, but you can't even trust the fact that it is that source because there's no external links. And the reason people do this on Twitter is so that nobody can check their work. Okay, and this is what Elon is promoting. So his algorithm is engineered to promote, which is this type of unsourced JPEG-driven breaking news, viral news. And it's intentional. He's even said that you don't have to put the link in the tweet. He said, put it down in the comments, but we don't want to mess the algorithm up. So Elon Musk has got this thing, doesn't want to drive any traffic off X. So he's gamed an algorithm to incentivize people to do tweets a certain way and to put up, quote, news that is like, is it really news? Or what is it exactly? What is this? Where did this come from? You don't know where it came from. There's no way to find out where it came from. And that's the whole point of Elon's news revolution on X. It's all unverified. So you just get this absolute menage of speculation, claims, AI images, fake news, fabricated stories, viral stories from the biggest accounts on the platform that he's paying thousands of dollars a month to in advertising share revenue. Doesn't care of the quality of the information, only the quantity of the information. Quantity, not quality. That's the "you are the media" revolution that I mean, it's just kind of stupid. I really, and you know, it's funny. Elon puts out a statement saying that he said Grok is going to be the only source of truth today. So this is exactly what we said before, Hesher, in a previous conversation, was that if you flood the information space with trash and garbage news and confuse people, there's a lot of people that don't know what's true anymore on social media. They're completely skull plugged. And so now we see people going to Grok or ChatGPT and saying, let's see what Grok or ChatGPT says. So all the real journalists are being suppressed. Those accounts aren't being boosted by Elon. He's boosting all the fake news and all the kind of viral JPEG-driven breaking news, unsourced news. That's what Elon himself is boosting, and then directing people to Grok, the AI engine, if they want to know what the real truth is. So is this the future that these technocrats want? Was that we're totally dependent on AI to find out what's true and not on the reputation of people who are professional, diligent, and good-natured? What could possibly go wrong?
Everything. The reality itself could get more warped and distorted than it already is. And unfortunately, I think that is the direction, and that's well outlined last night by points that Ryan made. Shout out to Ryan Dawson. He was making points about Elon's all of a sudden has this interest in human trafficking, yet he is not boosting any of Ryan's stuff. He's not boosting any of Johnny Vedmore's stuff. We know more than a handful of journalists, to include yourself, Patrick, who've done this work on Epstein, and not only are they not being boosted by Elon, they're suffering shadow banning and algorithmic skullduggery. The algorithm ghetto, as our friend Havore likes to use that term. Like, people like us are stuck in the algorithm ghetto and being subjected to that, while Elon can go make hay out of Tommy Robinson and talk about human trafficking, but there's no interest in the worst, most egregious stuff happening here in America that someone like Elon, who claims to be fighting this stuff and providing free speech, like those are the people whose work he should be boosting, but that's not what's happening. And you're absolutely right. In the background, everybody's being replaced slowly. If you know what I mean, like with the ubiquitous nature, the brand new, maybe year-old ubiquitous nature of AI in all of our apps now, to include X. Obviously Grok is there, but there's even little AI features you can use to summarize things or to change your text, make it a little more readable, whatever. It's getting really good. This technology is getting really good, and it's to the point now where people already don't know how to news. They don't know how to do analysis of current events. They don't have the globalist book series that Jay Dyer did in their back pocket. They don't have the book that you recommended behind their eyeballs, and the AI summaries of everything look great. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm well informed, and yeah, maybe I don't care who wrote it. Maybe I just don't care. It doesn't matter if an AI wrote it or if a person wrote it. So it's like and these things will become more and more embedded and ubiquitous in everything that we do. You know, I mean, look at calling a business, for example. How many businesses can you think of that you used to call and get a person, and now you only have access to the automated system? And it's pretty neat. It's a sophisticated automated system. You can speak in full paragraphs to it and do all kind of stuff with it and maybe accomplish your goal. But, you know, the things are being replaced and phased out and some of them should be, quite frankly, like healthcare administration is one thing that we just became aware of is getting in certain aspects of it is getting completely gutted. Entire departments of paper pushers and seat warmers are being cast off because 2 AI agents can do the job of those 30 people with a 0% failure rate. You know what I mean? Like, so yes, absolutely. But we're in deep trouble when it comes to having AIs and algorithm ghettos like X be the new news, because that's not news. That's you know, internet programming, that's government programming going straight into the third eye.
The other thing is you have the guy who owns the platform, who's got his thumb on the scale, and he makes sure that I unfollowed him, and all of a sudden I'm following him again. Okay, and so everything from Elon Musk comes in my feed first. Even though I'm not necessarily interested in it, I get it anyway. So that's why he gets maximum visibility, maximum traction. He has the most amount of followers, of course, because he's put himself in front of your face 24/7. Now, that as a user on the platform, does he deserve to have that position, or is this kind of a megalomaniac mentality here? Because then comes this incredible power of being able to physically push whatever you want to the top of everyone's feeds and the conversation. And so whatever your politics are will dominate. And what if there's a flaw in your politics? What if you have a screw loose? What if you're wrong? What if you have what if you're putting out bogus information and you're retweeting and boosting fake news? And that's what Elon Musk is doing. And does anybody think that's a problem? I think that's a problem. And then that person has bought their way into the White House. Yes, he did. Do you think he would be in the White House if he didn't bundle 100 million for Trump? I don't think so.
Probably
just
not.
because he's a smart guy? I doubt it. So he bought his way into the White House, and he's controlling the narrative and the politics of one of the biggest social media platforms on the web. Now, people say you shouldn't be critical of him because he bought Twitter and saved it. And myself, I wouldn't be on the platform if he didn't buy it. And I appreciate the fact that I do have my account back because Jack Dorsey nuked it. Because Jack Dorsey is a pot-smoking psychopath who also is a megalomaniac, who allowed the federal government to run a censorship farm on Twitter and kicked out and ruined the lives of countless people as a result of controlling speech and his gaggle. And all the spooks that were running around. There's still spooks running around on X in the background, but nothing like to the level Facebook or Meta has, or Google and YouTube. So it's all about censorship. So yes, I am grateful there's free speech on the platform, but I obviously I take that with as much responsibility as possible. I have a right to criticize Elon Musk because he is the biggest, most popular, famous person in the world. He puts himself out as, you know, a demigod. So criticism comes kind of with the territory. So I'm getting attacked by his followers and Tommy Robinson's followers that how dare I criticize Elon. Trump followers are also upset, many of them, at criticism of Elon Musk. But what he's doing is completely insane. It's totally over the top. He's made some bad decisions and he doubles down, and then he does a quick switch and he reacts to things. He reacts to things. Because of his ban the ADL hashtag campaign, he had the Israeli lobby set upon him and Ben Shapiro, and they're riding him so hard and ended up pulling him up on some comment about the Great Replacement Theory and dragged him all the way to Israel to do a struggle session. with Bibi Netanyahu, and then to Auschwitz with the photo op with Ben Shapiro. He had to do a space with Shmuley Botish, like 50 rabbis, and like had to prostrate himself at the altar of the lobby because of some comments or tweets he made. So, and then he became pro-Israel to the hilt after October 7th as well. So no talk about dead Palestinian children or Israeli rapes in prison of Palestinian prisoners, all that stuff that even came out in the Israeli press. Doesn't touch it, won't talk about it. So there's a lot of things you can criticize Elon Musk about, and he needs to own it. So one of them is his crazy support for Tommy Robinson, which is here, free Tommy Robinson now. And so he's latched on to this. And I don't think it's all him. I think he has Israeli kind of the super donor list. I forgot that WhatsApp group that got publicized in the Washington Post after October 7th. I think he's in that WhatsApp group. So him and Bill Ackman are basically doing exactly the same thing. Bill Ackman is a billionaire hedge fund manager and who's calling for, you know, students to be removed from campuses for protesting against Israel's genocide. Tommy Robinson's funded by the Israeli interests. They have sponsored him for years. He bats for Israel. He's very open about it. And he does this kind of Muslim versus Christian, white versus brown kind of narrative very openly, and kind of couches it in this. He is campaigning for the victims of grooming gangs. But the thing is, Tommy Robinson's in prison now, not because he was exposing grooming gangs. Tommy Robinson is in contempt of court. That's why he's in jail, because he violated court orders because he was tampering in a trial that had nothing to do with grooming gangs. But it was a Syrian refugee named Jamal something. He inserted himself into it, got completely over his head, and got censured by the court, didn't follow the instructions of the court, the warnings, ended up breaking his conditions, and he's back in jail. So he couldn't leave it. He couldn't let it go. He doubled down. What Tommy Robinson did is try to get the crowd on his side by putting out a lie that he is in jail because he was exposing grooming gangs. Two totally different cases. So Elon Musk didn't check on the facts. He just immediately went for the released, free Tommy Robinson narrative. If anybody did what Tommy Robinson did, they'd get banged up in jail, period. And so it was a separate case that Tommy got into because he wanted to get a journalistic scoop to defame. To me, my interpretation of this is it looks like he was trying to defame this Syrian refugee named Jamal because he was an Arab or a Muslim refugee, and Tommy just was looking for a scoop. But there was no story there. So instead of letting it go, he doubled down in the same way Elon's doubling down on his support for Tommy Robinson. So we're not saying that, exposing child abuse syndicates, that, of course, this needs to be exposed. The police have teams working on it. In fact, the Rotherham case, one of the things that impeded the investigations and the exposure in that case has been actual police, and not Asian police, white Anglo-Saxon police. So you'll find with any criminal activity, whether it's drug dealing, human trafficking, you'll find corrupt law enforcement at some level. That's it. That's the reason why it's not getting out, or the reason why the syndicate persists is sometimes because of government or law enforcement corruption. It's a fact of life. So these things are obviously complicated. So what has Elon Musk done here? He's basically said, look at this. It's my earnest hope that His Majesty considers this matter in the interest of his subjects. Elon calls for the king to dissolve parliament over grooming gangs. So yeah, I'm powerful. I'm going to use my platform to call for the dissolution of the British Parliament, as if you can just snap your fingers, or as if the king. And so Elon Musk doesn't know much about British politics. What Elon Musk doesn't understand is that the royal family has been mediatized for decades. In other words, they only hold vestigial positions with regards to politics. They're not really involved in the day-to-day workings. They're the titular vestigial head of state, but not active in politics. So he's kind of made a fool out of himself here, thinking that from his phone that he can bring down the British government. And so what has he done today? He doubled down again. And he's calling for Nigel Farage to be ousted from the Reform Party because they won't accept Tommy Robinson as a member. So this is the insurgent Conservative Party now that has all the chances of winning in the next general election. And Elon Musk has intervened to wreck reform and to push Nigel Farage out of politics, who is, by a lot of people's estimation, the favorite to be the next prime minister in the next general election. That's the trajectory reform is on. And so isn't it interesting that Elon Musk is intervening to basically break up the Reform Party? And who's going to benefit, guys? If Reform loses Farage and doesn't get the votes in the next general and the seats, guess who wins? Labor.
Mm-hmm.
So Elon Musk is helping Labor in the next general election. Supposedly the pedophilic Labor Party. He's going after Keir Starmer, saying he's responsible for the, quote, rape of Britain. Musk is also claiming something crazy. I don't have the figure in front of me he's tweeted so many times on this that 250,000 white girls underage have been raped by Muslims in Britain or something crazy like that. Totally unverifiable figures. I mean, insane levels of sensationalism here. So I think he's having a meltdown, because why would you want to go this deep and then also make enemies of Nigel Farage and GB News, which are the conservative bastion right now in the United Kingdom? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you're a, quote, conservative. Is Elon Musk a conservative? That's another question. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
He seems to have a very malleable political mind. You know what I mean? Like, you look at some of the things he used to say, and he appeared to be very, on the left. And obviously we watched that shift to more of so he was kind of like center left. And now he's sort of like went all the way to the right just before Trump. And now that Trump's in, he's kind of nudging back to this like center right sort of position, this very milquetoasty center right. Not that being center right or center left is milquetoast by definition. You're safer in those zones than you are in the extreme, but probably the closer to the center you can get with the right context, you're going to do a lot better. So to me, he seems to sort of be mirroring the way that American foreign policy works. You look at all the regime change that goes on around the world, and it's never based on a strict set of politics or policies or any of that. It's more about we'll support a conservative regime change here, we'll support a communist regime change here, we'll support a rebel sort of thing over here. It's like they can just shift. It's like that thing about bad guys that I was saying earlier. They just shift who the bad guy is. Whether in this case, it's more of a political bad guy. And then, the American attack dogs can go to it. And Elon is part of the American information warfare now. So, of course, he's going to gravitate to whatever. But this one in particular, I find egregious and really shows a lack of understanding. Like, either has a lack of understanding, or he's doing whatever he's doing for clicks, or whatever his plan is here. But it shows a clear lack of understanding that he would go after the British government over this topic, right? And use Tommy Robinson as the prop for the whole thing. Because if you're really concerned about that, again, we'll point out again, why are you not more concerned about the Epstein ring of people and associates? Why did I never see you X out about the Nixvium sex Hollywood cult, or John of God, who Oprah Winfrey and other people have been rubbing elbows with for years? I mean, there's all kinds of well-documented cases. Scientology, look at some of the stuff that's come out of Scientology, man. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. We've got that guy from the 70s show, Danny Masterson, in jail for raping people. He's in jail for 30 years. And, you know, everybody can see, you know, the Diddy thing has brought this to more light too. Everybody can see these sex trafficking, sex cult, sex influence, you know, rings happening in government, in Hollywood. You know, it's all over the place here, and it's in the open. You know, everything I just mentioned is stuff that's public record, and our media doesn't cover it. Our media didn't tell us hardly anything about that NXIVM sex cult, and it was horrible. It's atrocious. There's mind control going on. There's
blackmail. There's blackmail going on. So NXIVM and Epstein are the same. They're part of the same system. It's the same syndicate, basically.
Yeah.
But it's some big names, some high profile people involved in that. You know, big guys like you know, connected. The Bronfmans, for instance, Lex Wexner, for instance. So I mean, you're getting into the power elite of, you know, North America there. Ruckus, what do you think? Is Elon having a meltdown?
No, Elon's not having a meltdown. This is what Elon does. He does it all the time. He's just one giant troll. He just doesn't care, to be honest with you. That's why I'm like, what is his motive? He doesn't seem to latch on to anything. He's like water. So what you said about the fact that maybe his ultimate role is to just completely muddy the water, destroy X, and let something else come in, and you guys are nailing it with the AI thing. And it's like, people don't realize, unless you actually are paying attention to where we're at right now with AI and what they're using it for. Hesher used the keyword right there, AI agents. You're going to be hearing about AI agents a lot this year. Remember, Ruckus told you that. But what the thing is, like X, just like the Department of Government Efficiency thing, they're going to be using algorithms and slimming down, making things more safe and effective, kind of like they did during the pandemic, ironically enough. I think he's going to do the same thing with X. And I think what these people don't realize, see, Patrick, they've just simply cut out the middleman. See, the mainstream media does the exact same thing with unverified sources, but they make it look like when you read the stories, oh, yeah, no, they quoted somebody. No, they didn't. They just said, according to sources familiar with the matter. That's the exact same mainstream version of the people on X putting up sirens with no sources attached. You know what I mean? Oh, it's hidden in the comments somewhere. So Elon's just making the media more safe and effective. He's just being efficient about it. He's cutting out the middleman. And pretty soon, before you know it, he's going to cut out you as well. That's right. You, the big X monetized platform, will no longer be doing what you're doing. You will be replaced by AI. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg is already doing this on his platform. And you want to tell me Elon's not going to do the exact same thing? Elon has now introduced artificial intelligence created influencers who will be creating their own posts on Facebook. Now, considering how these AIs work, they work on studying language models. You, the big X checkmark who likes to collect all the money doing your fake news stories without any sources, are training the AI agent who's about to replace you how to do the exact same thing. And it ultimately serves the ultimate goal. Well, we can't trust this person, so let's go to a trusted source, an authoritative source, which is the problem. This is all problem, reaction, solution, because the problem has always been that the mainstream media has acted as gatekeepers. Now we've got this problem where everybody's misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. Look what's happening on X. Oh my God, we can't trust it. Okay, we all need to come together with the solution of a one source, trusted source of authority. And since we can't trust the dirty humans, we can't trust the media, we can't trust the government, we can't trust Elon, who can we trust? The AI.
Computer.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, trust the computer. And then it won't be long till politicians and public administrators are being replaced as well by more efficient, agents that don't make mistakes, as you said, Ruckus. Error-free pilots, administrators. It's nothing to do for humans, right?
They've talked about this for cities, too. They talked about doing this in Ukraine, right? Kiev is going to be a giant, glorious, democratic smart city soon. And guess what? In our pie in the sky view of what that means, there's going to be courts, there's going to the DMV, the court, aspects of government. They're all going to be automated, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, those are AI agents. Let's think of an AI agent as a job that someone used to have. right? So it's going to be the same with media, with news, with influencers, with code writers. I mean, there's a whole new add-on to GPT now where it's called Canvas, I believe, and it's expensive, but if it works the way that I understand it works, you can make it pay for itself. You can have it train it to be your, I don't know, your tax guy and your investments guy or gal. You know what I mean? You can name it whatever you want. Name it, Stapler 3000 if you want. But that's where they see all this going, and it's corrupting. Unfortunately, it's gonna. There's this theory of undermining the internet that we talked with Jay Dyer about on a recent Boiler Room, and that's exactly what this is going to do. This is going to further undermine people's ability to trust, their ability to analyze, their ability to believe their five senses. That's where this will ultimately end up, and that gets back to that problem reaction solution that Ruckus was talking about. And among those solutions are, of course, digital IDs, CBDC, and all that odious stuff that is, those main three pillars to technocracy.
Yeah, the pillars of technocracy. The technocrats want to automate everything, make it more convenient for you because things like work are inconvenient, and you'll have more time to do what? I don't know, sit there on a VR set doing porn. Who knows what they have planned for you, but there's some consumption type activity that you will have to be doing for the system. They're not going to let you do watercolors and landscapes all day. That's for sure. But it's speaking of Epstein, I shouldn't show this, but I will. Sorry. I apologize in advance. How come Elon doesn't go after the Epstein issue? Well, maybe it has something to do with this. Jeffrey Epstein set Elon's brother, Kimball Musk, up with his girlfriend in an effort to get close to Tesla founder. Sources say Jeffrey Epstein, multimillionaire sex criminal, introduced Kimball Musk, that's Elon's brother and business partner, to a woman in Epstein's entourage that we hear from Business Insider. Now, I don't know if this story has been refuted or not, but it's up there, and there's other similar reports. The woman had previously dated Epstein and lived in an apartment building where he was known to house his models, quote, models, and dated Kimball Musk 2011 to 2012. This is after Epstein's conviction. So that's interesting, isn't it? Jeff is quite the networker, isn't he? He does get around old Jeff.
Yeah.
And the blackmail thing you guys are talking about, this is a theory I've had. I haven't really vocalized it, but I was watching this and I'm like, I'm a little concerned about this. If Elon Musk wanted to take that same strategy as a business model, then he's got the perfect Grok. Grok is his Ghislaine. Grok is watching everything that you do. That's right, everything that you do. And I know what some of you do on X. In fact, quite a few number of you do, because you'll notice he didn't get rid of all the prawn on the platform. No, he doubled down on the prawn. The prawn gets to stay.
No, he expanded. He expanded it.
It's
because
big business, and he knows, and Grok knows you're watching it, so that could be used as blackmail against you people. Just so you know.
100%. So it was restricted before. Say what we want about the old Twitter regime, as terrible as it was. They put restrictions on porn and things like that. Now there are a number of scandals where there was trafficking taking place on Instagram, and I think it was happening on Twitter as well. There were some egregious crimes that were being posted on Twitter. Unbelievable stuff. People getting beat up, women getting beat up, horrible stuff. And they tried to moderate it and shut it down. What Elon's done is saying, oh, it's all good, and literally opened up the spigot for porn. So for whatever reason, he wants to make X the biggest porn site in the world. Now, I don't know about you, but there's some problems with that, because you can't regulate that, as we're learning now. How many states now are going to ban some of those big sites like Pornhub? A number of U.S. states are putting it behind, you can access it through VPNs in, I think it's 12 states now. So why? Because of the overlap with organized crime. That's why. So it's illicit activity. So, I mean, so what's his motivation? Is he big on the ethics and morals, or is he just big on the money, or just big on being number one in traffic? So is Elon about quantity or quality? Everywhere we look, he seems to crow, boast, brag, and celebrate quantity. He said X is the number one news source in the world. That's a bold-faced lie. That means that you're calling all the fake news and the memes as news. So you're basically degrading the term news by making that statement. And then he'll post a JPEG of flags from countries. Looks like a UN vote roll call list, but then it's made to look like these are all countries where X is number one. And one of them on there was Russia, which I believe there's a ban on X. You have to access it through VPN, so it can't be number one. So Elon Musk is putting out fake news about his own platform from the biggest account in the world. Does anybody see a problem with that, or is that just Elon being Elon, and I'm supposed to think that's cool?
Well, it's, X is everything, right? Like, we can't forget that X is intended to be the everything app, right? So it's supposed to be the WeChat, whatnot. I don't know. Do they have prawn in China? I have no idea. But I mean, if it's really going to be the everything app, and pornography is, 80%, it's the lion's share of money making on the entirety of the interweb. Of course he's going to want it. Of course he's going to want it. He's going to want to have it there. I certainly hope he's going to put guardrails up so children can't access it. But I mean, the fact that he's doing that just goes to show this is a perfect example of, how he's using human trafficking as a bit of a political wedge here, and a meme platform to troll the UK government right now in this case. But he literally does not care about human trafficking if he allows and supports pornography on X, because I hate to be the bearer of bad news for the porno creeps out there, but a lot of that industry is based and built around human trafficking. You unfortunately cannot tell if what you're seeing is someone that is a consenting adult or not, and there's no way to police that. And it's just allowed to exist because of organized crime, because governments, government is the ultimate human trafficker. Let's face it. And Elon Musk is supporting that by, letting X be an everything app. If everything includes pornography, then yeah, he clearly has a disconnect, or doesn't understand the nature of that industry, or doesn't care. So it's somewhere in there.
Yeah. So
and I hate to say it real quick, Patrick, but AI is probably going to solve that problem too.
Oh, how is AI going to solve that problem?
Because if the problem is all of the dirty, underhanded, illegal, criminal activity happening as a result of that, why don't we simply replace that with AI? Because that's a doable thing now. And who stands to benefit from this are people like Elon Musk, who are 100% heavily invested in AI companies. So, yeah,
so they'll
just
take
pointing it out there.
Market, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's cheaper because the AI will generate images so you don't have to pay somebody to do the thing on camera. You can just get the AI to do it for you. So yeah, a look into the future through Ruckus vision, I think. Dystopian future. So that was a little bit of, it's like they live.
As long as they don't replace us, I'm fine with all of it. It's all right, whatever.
I think ACR needs a good merch item. We need, they live, the glasses, Ruckus vision glasses.
Yeah, there you go.
And only with these glasses can you see the truth. And you know,
I'm on it. Get out of my head.
I will plug them. Don't worry. I'll plug them and wear them and make sure all my friends have them, wearing Ruckus vision glasses in 24/7. So yeah, you might be the next Elon Musk, Ruckus, if that one takes off.
I hope not.
And so this is what I tweeted, you guys, and we're going to wrap it up. This has been a kind of extended show, obviously important topics that we're covering. So people need to hear some of this analysis. And again, if you want to get the full-throated, I mean, this space we did last night, it's on my Twitter feed at 21Wire. Hesher was there, Ruckus was there. We had some great speakers, Ryan Dawson, Benjamin Rubenstein, and a few others. This was a great discussion, and we really had some great input from some people, and you know, I don't know how long this was. It was like a 4-hour space, but anyway, I tweeted this, you guys, this morning, because what did Elon just tweet? Grok will be the best source of truth by far in the future, says Elon Musk. So I said on the quote tweet, exactly as we predicted, and we have said, and I've tweeted this as well before, Technocrat's formula. Tweak, this should be a K, tweak the algorithm, and then pay shady content creators who flood the information space with viral fake breaking news and AI trash, suppress reach of actual journalism, so everyone must turn to his AI, Grok, for the truth. Clever, I said. And anyway, go on for a little bit of thing there. But like we kind of called it, you know, so he's directly in control of this process. He's incentivizing bad behavior. He's creating the problem. He'll create the reaction, and he'll provide the solution. I remember, raise your hand if you're old enough to remember Alex Jones teaching us about the Hegelian dialectic. Doesn't do it anymore.
Does he remember it, though? That's the question.
He doesn't do false flags, doesn't do Hegelian dialectic. He basically said the New Orleans truck was a classic Islamic truck attack. So no government involvement. He might have revised his talking points later that day, because Alex puts out 10 reports, 20 reports in a 24-hour cycle on any issue. So he's constantly doing it. So eventually something will stick and something can say, no, we called it. But what he came out initially was, this is an ISIS-inspired Islamic truck attack, and connected it with the border and everything. So, when you have that kind of a reach, that he's impacting the narrative to his audience. And anyway, just saying, not ragging on anybody, but we are kind of like saying what the fuck's going on. So
yeah.
So I always compliment Alex. Alex made some awesome films. When Alex was making documentaries, that's when I think he was at his best. Terror Storm, Endgame, the Obama Deception,
Police State. Alex made awesome films. Very effective, very well produced, and educational. And that's what a lot of people, red-pilled a lot of people on some of these important concepts. We have to credit Alex Jones for that. He did that, and he did it really well with the film format, which he had totally mastered at that point. His stuff was so effective. And so then he diverted and stopped making films around 2012 or something like that. So he kind of changed, and then Trump came, and it's a different kind of thing he's doing now. But I have to give him full credit. He red-pilled and opened the eyes and woke up a lot of people on some really important concepts. But he's not doing it anymore. So unfortunately, we want the old Alex back. Want that old Alex back. Who didn't love that old Alex? That old Alex was an absolute pit bull and an absolute beacon of enlightenment in some ways, but just very educational. He educated, red-pilled a lot of people. So credit where credit's due. Given some criticism, but I have to say he a lot. So I run into people all the time. Oh, it's because of this film by Alex that I really kind of switched on some big issues. So it happens so often. Anyway, guys, final comments on this extended Sunday Wire edition. Just getting into the new year with a big convo here. A lot of stuff going on. Ruckus, final thoughts for this epic broadcast.
I don't think I have any. If I do, we'll have to see what comes out on Boiler Room or on my own program as I digest this conversation, which was a perfect continuation of the X space. So I will remind folks to definitely check that out if you did not. Unfortunately, I'm not even sure. Do you have to be like an X subscriber or something, or a user to access these things? I don't know. It might just be free for you to click and listen, folks. But just remember, Grok knows that you're listening, even though you don't use X. Grok knows who you are. Just keep that in mind. but we definitely recommend you check it out anyways. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for including me on the, this was the first Sunday Wire of the new year. So that's exciting. I feel special. And I do want to give a shout out to all of the listeners and the people in the chat rooms across the various platforms like X, Rumble, YouTube. That really helps us out. So a huge shout out to Nathan Phillips, who's been keeping the conversation going and engaging. That really helps us get this message out on more eyeballs. So thank you, Nathan Phillips, for doing your part. And thanks to Alternate Current Radio for helping what Patrick does here at 21st Century Wire keep the dream alive. Both you guys are the media, not X, and not the people on X. We're it. So thanks again. God bless each and every one of you, and I hope God saves this republic.
Adam Ruckus Clark, thank you. Thank you for your contribution, and thanks for your joining in on your first space last night, which was awesome. And hopefully we can do it again. We really like the format, and the fact we can bring in so many different people in the conversation in and out is amazing. Daily Ruckus, ladies and gentlemen, at Alternate Current Radio, one of the best crafted podcasts out there. Adam is a top flight researcher and a wonderful producer to boot. And Hesher, final thoughts this week.
Yeah, this has been a banger intro to the year. We're only 5 days into the year here, and we could just barely squeeze all of the anomalies and strange things and analyses into the events. And there are some things that we squeezed in last night that we weren't able to hit today. So highly recommend, again, you get over there and check that out if you missed it. And check us out in the Boiler Room. We'll probably be live tonight if today goes as planned. If not, we'll be live again real soon, and pretty much every Thursday. Find us over there in the Boiler Room, alternatecurrentradio.com. And yeah, this is the first episode of season 12 of the Sunday Wire. I've just kind of been naming them. They now have a thing in podcasts where you can put the season marker in there. So I've been every year I up it one. So this is episode 1, season 12. What is this, episode 530, I think? And yeah, it's great to be off and running into another year of Sunday Wire. And thanks for having me on the broadcast today. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you folks in the Boiler Room. And thanks for hanging with us in the chat over at all the various outlets, Sunday Wire, 21stcenturywire.com, the Boiler Room Discord, and all the platforms that Ruckus mentioned. Thanks everybody for hanging with us for the broadcast here, and follow us on X if you haven't. We're in there, we're suffering that algorithmic ghetto, and if you want to repost anything we've done, then please do. We appreciate that. And thanks, Patrick. It's been a great show.
Thank you for joining us, and especially grateful for Hesher and also Ruckus, because they are steeped in the daily shooter analysis environment, and I can only talk to people on this subject who know what the hell we're talking about. And we have so much experience picking apart these types of events that it's nice to be able to come together and then draw on our experience and past work we've done, published, done quite a lot of stuff on, and be able to kind of, integrate that into what's happening before us, and then share that with our audience, with the hopes that our audience is going to be better informed and much more aware of what's going on as a result. That's why we do what we do. So thank you very much, Hesher, Ruckus, everybody at Alternate Current Radio, at ACR's Discord community, the chat rooms as well at 21st Century Wire. There's a whole ecosystem, a community at ACRs. You can see the type of content, the people involved, the people who are part of the community. So do consider joining and supporting Alternate Current Radio and the great programs they have as well. You've seen some of the people here on our platform. And the same with 21st Century Wire. The winter fundraising drive is on now. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we fund our operation for the next 12 months. So we appreciate any donations that you can give us to help us get from A to B, and much appreciated. Those of you who have donated, I'm going to read off the roll call of donors next week. Not the full names, obviously, just a little shout your first name so you know who you are. But we're going to acknowledge some of the great people who supported us when we really need it in the clutch. So there's lots of different ways you can support us. Ideally, subscribe and become a monthly member at 21wire.tv, or just pop us a donation. We'll accept crypto as well. We've got quite a few cryptocurrency donations in the last month. So we appreciate any bits and pieces we can get. We'll put it to good use. And as I told our people many times, our best work is ahead of us. We'll be dropping some of the biggest stories ever this year. And we're working on all of that stuff as we speak. So we'll put it to good use. Don't you worry about that. We've been going since 2009. So it's not a fly-by-night platform. We steadily growed our media operation since then. And we can't do it without your help, without your support. So again, we really, really appreciate it. That's all we've got time for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. This is the Sunday Wire, live on the Alternate Current Radio Network and 21st Century Wire.com. Appreciate all you guys on the different platforms. Do like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, we really need your help there as well. Help us to sort of overcome some of the throttling that we definitely experienced there. So again, we appreciate that type of help. Content sharing, like, subscribe, tell people about what we're doing. And if you like what we do, and again, if you want to support us, do so here at our winter fundraising drive at 21stcenturywire.com. Need it now more than ever, ladies and gentlemen. So really appreciate it. That's all we got time for. Again, take care. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. It's been an extended Sunday Wire episode 530 of this weekly omnibus news and analysis radio and TV program. Now, thank you so much for joining us. All the best. Take care.
Supervised contact, they watch our every move, they examine our togetherness like we've got something to prove. I've looked behind your eyes, I've seen the sadness you hide, I've looked into your eyes, I've seen the tears that you've cried. No, I won't get used to these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains. In the legal arena, upset theaters are staged. She moves in circles, her cruel games cause delays. From the questions you ask me, like why can't you come home tonight? From the moment you hold me, it's the shortest hour of my life. No, I won't get used to these chains. I wanna tell you what I'm feeling, I wanna tell you what I know. Someday
See, I've got to be careful with what I say. Their conspiracy of silence, they think the truth will lead you astray. They say that they're here for you, but they never listen to what you say. They've built walls between us. I will walk through walls to break these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains. No, I won't get used to these chains.